Hey, hello everybody, and welcome to the Zoom Test Kitchen. I'm Jeff Widgren, your host, and glad to see everybody here. Today we're streaming live directly from Zoom out to our YouTube channel, Zoom Test Kitchen, and we keep all the archives there for replay and so forth. So tell folks about it. It's a good way to catch up a little bit or dig in. But anyways, today we are going to begin by focusing on a new feature, which is being able to configure and throw up a poll and then have that automatically based on the answers that each individual provides to that poll, a single answer at that, automatically configure and uh, launch breakout rooms. And so with that, pretty powerful for sure. I don't forget all the messages and submissions and complaints and challenges and even advanced solutions, if you will, with Isadora and so forth, of being able to accurately and timely get breakout rooms, especially in medium to large meetings with hundreds of people present, being able to make that happen without a struggle or additional staff or whatnot. So imagine being able to advertise a meeting coming up, a large meeting. Let's say there's maximum in a meeting is 1,000 people. So let's just say there's 1,000 people. Being able to pre-configure 1,000, potentially up to 1,000 breakout rooms, which is the limit as well as far as the attendance. But the breakout rooms are limited to 100. And I don't know. They announced a couple of weeks ago that everybody was going to receive the what's called the BR 100 or BO 100, which is the ability to increase the number from 50 to 100 breakout rooms. And you wouldn't even have to ask any longer, which used to be the case. Don't know if that complete rollout is finished at this point or not, but needless to say, can configure up to 100, and each one of those can host 1,000. But that's the limit, and the holding limit is 1,000 people per meeting. And so don't take that like I did further along that said, well, if I can do 1,000 per breakout and I can do 100 breakouts, that's a lot of people. Well, you aren't going to get past that 1,000 people per meeting limit as well. But needless to say, to be able to do that quickly and accurately into breakout rooms is fascinating to me. So you advertise this meeting, you want to kick it off, let's say it's a keynote or whatever the case may be. And then, but everybody's well aware that they're there to attend one of the advertised sessions or breakout sessions. And so that could be your poll. And it's session one and the title, session two and the title, and so forth. You list, let's say, the 12 sessions, you put it out there in a poll, and it's limited to one answer, so they can't select more than one. And so people reply accordingly and submit. We end it, and we told it. We'll go through all this, but we told it, with this question, create breakout rooms, and so the system's ready for it, and so we trigger that, and it does all the assigning. The previous challenges were um, trying to preload breakout rooms, right? Pre-assign breakout rooms, and name accuracy and so forth was a challenge. A lot of folks would even they would register, but then still show up under a different account. And so what you thought you had as a match is now a mismatch, which is now an unassigned individual to a breakout room. So being able to do this within the meeting live is just a fascinating opportunity as far as I'm concerned, for sure. But let's say hi to who's here and take a look, and let's make sure everything's healthy. The recording is not going. Let me fire that up internally. There we go. Sorry for that interruption. But with that, let's double check the stream, and it is out there. I can see. So we're good there. All right, very good. And finally, let's see if David is with us yet. Let me know if you're here, David, so that I can give you host and let you control whatever you're seeing, the stream will see. So whenever you're ready for that, I'll make that transfer. So anyways, Ray, welcome. How are you?
Well, Jeff, greetings from Central Florida.
Very good. Thanks for coming. John, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, and I have to agree with you. We do a lot of breakout rooms, so this new feature is very, very timely indeed.
Yeah. Thinking even beyond the helpfulness of it as far as assigning, creation, assignment, movement, and so forth, is I think it might end up being one of the most accurate tools in the sense of everybody who answers will get assigned and moved to the breakout rooms. If you want to know who's logged in and then disappeared quickly, throw up a poll and see them sit in the main session while everybody else departs, and you'll know that those are the individuals who aren't really at their computer as well. Don't suspect that that's why the tool was created, but needless to say, there's always other potential uses for new features as well, and I think that that may be one of them. So Tamra, how are you?
Hello. I think I'm still at a delay. I can't figure this delay situation out in Zoom. It's killing me.
I don't know. Your lip sync looks good if that's
Better
the delay
today.
you're talking about. Yeah, no, you're doing fine.
That was a great explanation, because I, for the life of me, was like, why does this exist? Like, I could not figure it out. And now I finally was like, oh, okay. It doesn't work for some of my things, but I was playing with it. I'm like, why would I want this? I don't understand.
Yeah.
So that actually
Hey,
really
admittedly, it took me a few days to grasp hold of, and I'm all about that, so I'll write an article and talk about the new features and so forth. But until I can really put some usefulness to it, does it really become meaningful? Now, it's not for me to say that they've wasted their time or created something, that's subjectively me, right? It's just it in my world, it's not, but that's not to say, and I can almost promise you that whether it was education or financial vertical, or there's somebody out there who helped cause the creation of that new feature that we may not find useful. But I think part of what's going on with this new feature as well is we have polls, and we have a mindset wrapped around polls, right? And it's polls, and it's how many answered this one and how many answered that one, and it's just it's a measuring stick, if you will. And we in this case that we're talking about today for breakout rooms, that if we just stretch our understanding of what polls have been and are now, you can still run all those regular polls and but then have one that is prepared for breakout room assignment, whether it's based on dynamic interest, as a result of an opening keynote, or they know that they're coming in to partake of a keynote, and then this is absolutely their intention is to do it. But what's really happening at the end of the day is we're able to ask the entire audience, tell us where you want to go, and it just mechanically, logistically makes it happen without incident by all indications, because Zoom inside the application knows exactly who you are and what your answer was, therefore where you need to be moved off to. So it's quite cool. Robert, how are you, my friend?
Oh, I'm doing well, just playing with something at the moment, so it may look a bit awkward. I'm out of sync. I'm doing well, thank you.
Yeah,
Hello.
you're really, really, really delayed. Like your lips didn't move for about 5 seconds there, and then it kind of snapped in a little bit. So I'm not sure if it's catching up or
No,
not,
it's actually a recording of myself while you were talking, and I wanted to see if I can just switch myself in and out in a seamless fashion. Bit naughty, but it was something I wanted to see if it can be done. It's useful sometimes. Doing well. Met up with John earlier this week, so and David, so Paskin, so familiar faces from this week. But keeping busy. Busy. Thank you.
Very good. Very good. Who's next? It looks like Avatar Frank is with us. Hello, Frank.
Hello, everyone.
It's always kind of a strange experience for me to talk to an avatar, but I'll do it because I know who's behind that avatar.
I could put a baseball cap on.
Yeah, there you go. That'll help. Very good. Let's see who's next on my screen. Dale. How are you, Dale?
Doing well. How are you?
Good. Have you been with us before?
I have not. No, I think you and I connected on Facebook at some point last week, and you kind of admitted me in. I'm very new to the concept of ZoomISO and ZoomOSC, and I just kind of wanted to get in a community like this where I could learn from more knowledgeable folks than myself. So thanks for having me.
Yeah. No problem at all. Yeah, I remember us messaging back and forth and saw that you started connecting to the different areas and so forth. So thanks for doing that.
I have a lot of really specific questions about a plan that I've been working on for a while on, specific meeting needs and things like that. So
well, as you know, I'll say we're kind of a combination of two. We have a little bit of set agenda, which is today. It's the polls to breakouts, but then we always open it up to specifics and whether there's specific questions or things that turn into projects, and you just get the brain power of everybody here and an environment where we can really test it. If you want to test it and I need to temporarily give you co-host or even host, we can do that and have done that many of times as well. So it's a live workshop as well. So certainly if you can hang in there. Do you have any hard time outs that I need to be sensitive to?
I actually will have to dip out for a brief moment. I have to go pick up my car at some point before 5 today. So but if you all are still going when I get back, I'll hop back in. So
okay.
So no worries there. This is my first time, so just kind of wanted to meet you all. So thanks so much. It's great to see everybody.
Yeah. Well, welcome. Glad you're here. It's a pretty friendly community. There's a lot of brain trust here as well. We've learned lots and really do our best to keep up with it and so forth. So hopefully you get some really useful nuggets out of it as well. So stay in touch. Well, Mike, how are you?
Doing good, Jeff. How's everybody doing? From the snowy north.
From the snowy north.
Ottawa's digging out just like Toronto, but as he nods at me, yes.
Yeah, very good. We got a little bit here, but it's warming up now, so it is not too bad. It didn't linger all too long, but it's been cool. I'll say cool because I know my cool or cold is not going to be your cold for sure. But today it's like 40 degrees out, which is great. But needless to say, Justin, how are you? Justin's in the house, our companion guru.
I'm doing fantastic. It's been a great Friday.
Yeah, very good. Glad to have you here. Frank is next on my screen, but I already talked to you. I wonder, did you turn your camera off and back on, or just switch from avatar to live? Kind of what I'm asking because how video order can change.
So there's those live avatars, and then there's the worthy camera off avatar. So I turned it to camera off avatar.
Okay.
But then I went and checked my camera to make sure it was pointed in the right direction, framing, and then I turned my camera on.
Yeah, very good. Well, that explains why you changed in my gallery order is you turned your camera off and back on. So I wouldn't have expected that behavior just from a live avatar and back. So that answers that. Tony Mobley, how are you?
I am great, Jeff. Good to be here.
Yeah, always glad to have you here. There's Jared, who is off camera, and if you, there he is. He's on now. Great, good to see you, Jared. Have you been here before?
One time for like a little bit.
Yeah, you're back.
Yep,
At
I
least
was
you
messing around
didn't-
with ZoomOSC earlier today. Sent out some SOS notes to everything, everywhere.
Very good. Very good. Yeah, I've got my panel next to me, which is kind of a combination of controlling my vMix console and ZoomOSC as well. It's capable of, doing the ISO piece of it as well, although I'm not leveraging that during this meeting. But I did. I built out some a few pages in my Stream Deck, and let's see if I can switch this. Am I up? That's max. Oh, here we go. Is that the one? Nope. Everything's coming up. Oh wow, that's really strange. I'll have to. Let's go. Wow, my PTZ. So I was also messing around with virtual PTC in vMix. So you can just have a full screen shot and then create, as long as you zoom in, then you have room to virtualize your way around as well. I'm not quite sure why it's grabbing. Oh, I know. I relaunched desktop CF1. Everything's coming up gallery. I relaunched the vMix desktop capture, and everything's coming off of screen 1 right now. So I will I'll get that fixed. But my point was, my share was going to be that I built out a few pages, one in particular, and it was really kind of my first go of just really spending some time building graphical icons and so forth for the buttons versus just text and colors, which that's all I've done for the longest time. And so it was really ZoomOSC specific, as far as kind of grouping them together on one to or many people that you select, and which is the new workflow. And then you can apply any of these actions. Some of them, if I scroll up and call some of them out, one or many people request their video on, or eject them from the meeting, or let them in from the waiting room, send them to the waiting room. I did find out today that I also have buttons that enables the waiting room or disables the waiting room at just a touch of a button, but it seems to only be responsive to that if my ZoomOSC machine is the host, not a co-host. And so with that, and I think is that true? Can a co-host not turn on or off the waiting room? Usually that's trackable. It's like, well, you can't do that in Zoom, therefore you can't do it in ZoomOSC. Frank or Ray, can you enable or disable the waiting room? Because I asked him because he's a co-host. No. Okay, that must be why. I really kind of never tied that together, which makes it's a little bit of a challenge, right? Because I want the stream. The stream is derived from the host's primary desktop, and that's not my ZoomOSC machine. Yeah, in all my actions, push button actions, if they change, a spotlight to, a non-spotlight or whatever, a page or two on my Stream Deck is quite reliant on gallery position. And so one of the ending actions is to throw it back into gallery, and so it's almost always on gallery, no matter what I'm switching. And so that doesn't help the stream, if you will. And so it can't play both of those roles effectively. So that was just a finding within the last 2 hours. So kind of put that together. It just takes time. Who else here? Scott Mueller's here. David Paskin. Jared is here. Jan. Anybody wants to pop on and say hi, you're certainly welcome to do so. There's Taylor and Alex. So, and Frederick. So anyways, let's check it out. Any thoughts, comments about the polls to breakouts? Anybody have a scenario or whatnot that you'd like to kind of put to use while we get after this? Such a noisy group.
So polls to
Jeff,
breakout. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, so Jeff, you were asking earlier, like some scenarios of why you would even want to use this. And so one of the events I run for clients is all about joint venture partnerships and networking. And the way we run it today is we put them in these 20-minute networking breakouts, but it's just randomized. If we had something like polls, you could potentially do it by, say, industries or something that would group like people that may want to promote each other, and based off their answers, put them in the breakout so they have much more of a chance of getting people that want to sign up to actually promote them versus just this random group of people that ends up in a room with you.
Yeah. John. You're muted, John.
Yeah, I couldn't get my unmute button to work. We do a lot of medical conferences, and they are always into breakout rooms because they like doing case stories. That's the most practical way that they learn. So there'll be a presenter, will talk about a particular subject, and then they will go into a breakout room and they will discuss that case story. So to be able to choose scenarios is going to be very useful for those groups, and I'm sure we'll be using it straight away.
Very cool. Thanks for sharing that. Robert.
I'm going to hit you with the normal tendency of saying language interpretation. So when we go breakout rooms by language, this is going to be a really, really smart way to do it.
Yeah.
The only thing that we'll need to struggle with, I can imagine, but I'm not sure because I haven't seen it yet, maybe something's changed, is the message itself, the poll itself will only be in one language. So that's something we struggle with all the time. But we've figured out a way of formulating the questions and the answers in multiple languages. So that should work. Up to 3 is manageable, but over 3, it becomes very messy.
Yeah. So would you just instruct your interpreters to, I mean, you pre-assign them as interpreters, so the Zoom system knows that they are interpreters, but do you then just let the interpreters know, hey, when we put this poll up, select your room as, your interpretation language room so that there's accuracy there? Or do you preload them? Or, I mean, creating breakout rooms from a poll is a recreation process. So I don't think those interpreters can sit there early and then you launch a poll, because it will recreate and reopen. And so it will kind of demolish those interpreters if they're already in their rooms waiting, if you will. Is that accurate?
Well, the way we do it is because there is no interpretation function within the rooms themselves, we don't move the interpreters.
Gotcha.
And the thing is, if you do a random allocate, it'll actually take everyone, including the interpreters, which really messes you up because you've got to reassign them, reset them up, and check that everything's okay. So that's been messy, and we've tried to avoid that. So I'm really keen on seeing how we can automate that using the polls. I think it's going to work well, but we'll see.
Yeah, good stuff. Thanks for sharing that. That's all the hands for now. John Drinkwater asked Ra, well, everyone he addressed it to, but it says, can the interpreters move the window? It's a new feature. And have you guys been able to successfully test that out?
Yeah, we've done that. We've tested it. It's cool. And it's really convenient because especially during a presentation, when that's the function was actually covering up something that was in the presentation, a name or something that was important, it became a real hassle, to say the least. So yes, they can move it around. It works. It's fine.
Yeah, and captions have been, I mean, that's one of those things, like captions possibly could have been covered up as well, but captions for the longest time have been movable. And I imagine captions might help, with the exception of maybe there's too much delay, an interpreter get a visual sense of what they're hearing and about to interpret as well. I'm not sure if that's true or not, but now the translation window is movable also, right?
Yeah, but the captions we use for something else, because if we're going in, for example, that especially in Europe, where you have countries that have more than one language, and they'll have a main language and a secondary language that covers a very small part of the population, it becomes really expensive to have a simultaneous interpreter. So what we do there is capture the captions, in other words, take the transcript live and just do a translation of that live and stick it back into a caption for example, the second language people, which works well for us. But that's a different feature.
Yeah, very good.
I've been playing with my filters today. I don't know if anyone remembers this feature that Zoom brought in some time back. That lower third of mine is set up by a filter in Zoom itself. So it's a clever thing to do, but not many people use it. But I'm going off topic, so sorry.
Yeah, no, but you're right. I mean, I remember, and us all playing with them, and rather than it being a goofy mustache, it's something that is like a lower third is perfect. So yeah, kind of built in. You have to have the dialog box popped open and so forth, but you can change graphic. I mean, you could drive really kind of an entire presentation if you preloaded all these graphics and bugs and lower thirds and so forth. So it's not tied all the way out to some helpful device like Companion, I don't believe, but with a dialog box, staying open, you can click through those and make them change, right?
Actually, I don't need to do that because during our pre-event tests, I get everyone to load their predefined graphic as a filter, and it automatically comes up. So it's allocated to the attendee. So you don't have to do anything really once they define.
Yeah. Oh, I was just talking about, like, if you had purposefully planned kind of a top to bottom, run of show that required graphical changes, and you didn't want to invest, the time, energy, or money in a third party product or whatnot, to intervene in your video signal, such as vMix, OBS, all Ecamm and so forth. Tamara.
So I just have a quick question about this breakout room. When the poll creates breakout rooms, I'm assuming they're just rooms you can't enter into. They're entered in through the poll itself. And then anybody who's not, I'm assuming as a host, I could enter them in, but they couldn't choose once it's open.
Well, they can if you let them. So, right,
so we can set it up
so yeah, all those options are still available through the process.
Okay.
And so you can in fact make that happen.
Yeah,
absolutely. Well, there's going to be latecomers. I mean, you just can't avoid. There's going to be latecomers while the breakout rooms are open. There's going to be latecomers who were those that had walked away from their desk, but yet they were signed on, and so they didn't answer the question, and so they didn't get moved. There will always be, and so we can move them accordingly. Now we can't relaunch the poll, for them to, make that choice, themselves, but we'd have to get a little bit interactive and ask them, hey, what session are you interested in today? If that was the, use case, and make that choice and move for them.
Once it's open, so I guess my question is, we have the option of having self-selected breakout rooms. So I use that a lot, where I create a little panel and people just come into the main room and I'm like, pick a room, go randomly go off on your own. If I did it as a poll and I assigned people to those breakout rooms and then someone came in, do I still have the option when I make the poll to set that up as a self-selected breakout room once they
just about now I haven't tested this as deep and long and hard as possible because I kind of need a group, you know, but at the same time, I have the sense that we haven't lost anything. We've just gained that initial distribution, creation and distribution. And so you can allow them to come back to the main session or not. You can allow them to choose their own room, but their initial answer to the poll got them to their first one. But if you turned on the option to let them move, then they can click on their breakout room button and join a different one if they'd like as well. So, all right. Well, I think we're ready to give this a go. So let me do some screen sharing. I'm going to try something. I got to test while we're here. And so I have a single button to launch the screen share in OSC, right? And it's your primary screen. And so I moved my Zoom window over to my first monitor. And so I'm going to hit share on that. Bingo. One button. Holy smokes. I have an unmuted system right now. Hang on. Somewhere. Not quite sure. Got an echo. Where's it coming from? Hello. Huh. Does somebody, is there anything that's open in the meeting? Just me.
Yeah, nobody else is.
Yeah, I see that.
Sounds like it's coming from a headset.
Can you hear the echo?
Yes.
That's really weird.
You did share your computer's audio. So maybe we're hearing it feeding back that way.
Let me see if I can just go in and disable the audio just on the share. Oh well. So much for that. Gonna kill that and do it manually. Not gonna burn too much time there. Okay. All right, so you can still see the share. It's my Zoom client at that. And so with this, I am going to begin with the polls down on the bottom. Let's see if I can help with zooming as well. Kind of be a jerky experience, but I'll zoom in and out here and there. So down on the toolbar, I'm going to click on polls and get that pop up for the creation. And so that's one that's in there. Do you love the holidays? I don't remember typing that. Huh. I wonder how old that is. Zingity zing. But the other thing that I have to bring to your attention here is what's new? What's new? I mean, who's done a lot of polling and where have you done it? Feel free to just unmute with a reply.
Yeah, we do a lot of polling in management mode and supervisory board meetings.
Mm-hmm.
So we use the polls to vote.
Yeah, and what I'm trying to drive home as well is, did you do it on your computer in the meeting, or did it always fly us up to the web portal? And that was the deal, right? We always had to be taken to, therefore you had to be the host who knew the credentials to the web portal account to create and manage your polls. Poll management now, creation, editing, deleting, the whole bit is all built into the client now. And so the need to have that web portal access for polling is no longer, which I think is huge. But so needless to say, we create a poll first, and you can create, multiple polls, and each poll can have a different question and so forth. You have your regular standard polls, and you have your advanced polls and quizzing as well. So you can kind of receive a score. The quizzing is they answer questions and they're literally given a reply of whether that's right or wrong. And that is that. And there's other types of polling question formats as well available. But we'll start with the standard poll and go next. And let's see, I move my mic away from my keyboard just a touch. Can you still hear me okay with it that far away? Okay. So we'll just type in test kitchen poll. And so the question being, let's just stay on this use case. All right, let's do this. Select the session that you'd like to attend. Just be perfectly clear about it. And you can see here on the bottom that that it has a checkbox here that says create breakout rooms, and so you can check that. If you change this to a multiple choice question, that option goes away, because they can now no longer logically, from their single answer, make the decision of what breakout room to assign them to. So they just take it away, which is good. So it has to be a single choice. And at this point, I'll kill that mover magnifier. Probably should change that mode. But I'll keep it simple and go with session 1, session 2, and we'll go with one more, session 3. And if anybody has questions, even while we're building this out, feel free to chime in and ask away. You can order these, you can reorder these, while you're building them as well by clicking and dragging and so forth. So if something seemed to, kind of get out of whack, don't feel like you have to delete and rebuild and so forth. You can move them around. And so we've got the question, single choice. Keep it short here, session 1, 2, or 3. I would add titles there as well. I don't know if they stopped my cursor or not. Let me see if they do. Type. They don't. I can promise, they do eventually. This seems like it's a lot longer than it used to be. Should try that sometime, for the sheer fact of being able to know what's the maximum number of characters that can be in a poll question and in a poll answer. Because when you're gathering customer requirements and building to run a show and so forth, I've run into some customer events that the answers that they wanted to be displayed were far too long to the capability of what the system would accept. And so to know those, limitations and so forth are really best when you're gathering data the first time versus having to go back and, change things and tell them that, it doesn't work and so forth. So when their first reply is often, why didn't you tell me that in the first place, right? So I think it's super useful to know those kinds of details. All right, session 1, 2, and 3. I'm going to click on create breakout rooms. If I mouse over that, it says breakout rooms will be created automatically based on poll results. And you can delete this, or you can duplicate the question as well. It's not deleting the create breakout rooms row here. It's deleting the question and or duplicating it. And so you can add multiple questions, but only one of them is going to be able to, if we go to add another one, even though it's a single choice, there isn't the breakout room option on that second or further additional, because you've already burned that opportunity with the first question. And so that's the rule. So they've got some good controls in place, which I can certainly appreciate. So when we go back up and edit the first one, it's there. When let's see if I can delete this one.
So one thing that's super apparent, Jeff, looking at that, is there's no way to tell that you actually checked the breakout room option
Once you
until you
move
go edit it.
on, you're right. Yeah, you have to go back, and I mean, you would know that's what causes breakout room options to disappear, and but you'd have to, I think, crawl your way up to say, well, which question did we do that to, right? But here's the other thing. If I go in to edit that question so I can see the create breakout rooms, if I go down here to more, and it says require answers to be anonymous. And if you check that, I'm pretty positive the create breakout room option gets taken away. And so they can't be anonymous question. They can't be anonymous answers, because then Zoom doesn't know who you are to make that assignment to the breakout rooms. And so it's visually, it's not there until you go back in and edit. So I'm going to take that away, and it doesn't just up above, it doesn't just pop up the breakout room option. You have to go into edit, and when you do, you'll see that the create breakout rooms option is there again and available, and it remembered that it was checked as well. So just a caveat. The two biggies are, it has to be a single choice question, and it can't be anonymous. Those are the two big dogs. That's
actually good news, Jeff, because what that tells you is the programmers have specifically, when you say anonymous, they have specifically not recorded, as opposed to what could have been where they could have recorded the answers, but you weren't able to get the answers out of the database.
Yeah, it's masked publicly, but yet they, could still tap into that as well. So, all right.
And,
so I'm
Jeff,
gonna,
real quick,
yeah.
if you were to uncheck that create breakout rooms and create a second question, do you then get the option in that second question?
You do. So I'll do just that. So I unchecked it. I'll say add question, and you can see here on the second one, I have the option to create. The first one, I still have the option because nobody's claimed it yet. If in the second one I claim it and then go back to edit the first one, that I would have expected that to go away. Yeah. Oh, interesting. I think we found a weakness, because that's not possible. I mean, I don't know what that will do, and I don't want to blow things up first. We can definitely do that later, though. But
yeah, that was definitely not expected.
Yeah,
don't hit save.
Unexpected.
A programmer will explode.
Yeah, I don't want it to explode right now.
And also, I've just been in the web interface. In the web interface, you could create multiple polls, and each of those polls could have a breakout room option. So you can repeat this over and over again, can't you?
The limiter is one question per poll can do it. So you can create multiple polls with multiple questions. It's just per poll you can have one of those questions create breakout rooms. That I think that's the limiter, if you will. And it's not a limiter. It just know that that's the structure that you need to build to. So I'm going to stick with this original one. That's a great question to find out. Fact is if you don't use it on the first question, you can get to the second one. It's available. If this is where in the kitchen we dig in, right? And we claimed it once and then we unclaimed it on question one. What if I never claimed it? Would it then show it to me in 2. The answer is yes, we know that. If I claimed it in 2, then would it have the same, I think, bug behavior? Because it certainly shouldn't present it available for the first question at that point. So, you know, I just think about those, you know, all the steps we took. Did we contribute to why it did that as well? It's possible. All right, so we've got our first question. It's single choice, session 1, 2, or 3. Create breakout rooms. We looked at the more required to be anonymous. We know that will undo the breakout room option, and so we're not going to do that, and we'll hit save. Now this is just savable at this point. I mean, I don't have to launch this until the event demands it, right? And so it's just ready at this point. And we can add, we can go through and we can add more, and then we can edit, duplicate, or delete what's been built, and or we can launch it. And so I'm going to go ahead and launch it. Oh, let me back up. There was one more option. It's kind of just sitting here hiding away. If you have a lot of polls, you may want to filter them down so you can see them faster, and that's actually clickable. And so you can filter to all types, which shows everything first, or you can filter it down to the polls and or the quizzes independently. So I have no quizzes. I go to polls and it shows up, and then I can go to all to take the filter off, if you will. So I wanted to point that out. So this is out there right now. I'm going to end that, and then we'll look at results. And there were some, we got 3 of 10 replied, and at that point you can tell it to create breakout rooms. But to Tamara's questions earlier, the options, well, those will actually come up here in the next step. And it can relaunch the poll. So if anybody missed that, I'm going to relaunch this, and everybody who wants to participate can. So go ahead and pick session 1, 2, or 3. Look at that. We better than doubled our participation. All right. So 7 of 10. All right, very good. So we decide, you know, let whatever you decide a percentage this is. Well, it looks like that climb rate is slowing down enough, right, to finally end the poll. And you can, if you'd like, you can share the results, and I'll go ahead and share the results. Now everybody sees kind of how things voted out and so forth. And so at this point, you'll know how many people are going to be in the room with you, right? It's not like that regular poll of, yes or no, true or false, or whatever the case may be. And I think that's a bit of the mindset change to a degree, depending on how you're using these. But I'll stop sharing at this point and take a peek, relaunch the poll, download the results, or view them in a browser. You can do that, and you'll have another opportunity for that as well. But I'll say create breakout rooms. So now it says decide how many participants you want in each, and so you actually have the opportunity to limit the number per room. And that there was never a ceiling before, quite honestly, right? There's never a ceiling before without it just being a human deciding I'm not going to put more than 10 people in. Or you could spin the spinner, right? And the spinner's there is, it's calculating out of, the 500 responses. You say, hey, I want 10 to 12 people and so forth. And so it'll basically tell you, how many breakout rooms it's going to create. I'm not, I think the calculation is just different. I'm not quite sure how it handles. Like if our number is, 2 and 5 people answered for session 1, what does it do with the other 3? I'm not 100% clear on that right now. And or you don't check mark that box participants per room, you can do it. But if you don't check it, then everybody who answered will end up in the room that they answered. And so there won't be the limitation. So it's not a have to enforcement, if you will, or cap. So I will let them all carry through as voted. I'll hit create. So now they're created. Tamara, here's the options that we are really familiar with, right? To allow participants to choose the room. And so these are all very familiar. Allow participants to return to the main session at any time. Automatically move, which is the deal of all deals, right? Just make it happen initially. But, you know, if to Tamara's questions earlier, you know, if you want them to be able to move after they land and stay for a little while on that first one, it just wasn't what they thought it was going to be, whatever the case may be, right? You can let them choose other rooms. Allow participants to return to the main session at any time, maybe if they're having technical issues, whatever the case may be. Put a timer on it. It's all the same options. Notify me when that timer's about ready to give up. And I'll put the timer at, I'll just do 1 minute. That's weird. Typing that just like sent my screen crazy. And then the countdown's as short as I can make it at 10 seconds. So we just do quick tests here, but
So question for you, Jeff. If you were to close this breakout room window and then do the create breakout rooms again, could you check that option of limit number of participants and would it recreate the rooms? I assume yes, but
yeah, I would guess it would have to, you know, it would have to adjust. I mean, certainly something, let's keep it on our test list. And give it a test at that. So you can save the breakout rooms, you can recreate, you can add rooms. So you can still, you know, if you, for instance, if you had these multiple sessions and you still wanted to provide a tech support room, right? That is, you know, been told that it's always available. Nobody's going to be assigned, but yet it will be built and it will be available and they can go there if they need to, because you've allowed them to choose a room as well, right? And so the assignments, it doesn't expose that part, you know, based on the polls at this point, but I would kind of think maybe, but it really didn't know yet, right? Until this automatically move and so forth. So maybe that's the case. I don't know. Anyways, open all rooms. Some of you are going to leave us and because it will do the auto move. All right.
No, I don't think anyone's going to move. And I think the reason is because you said allow people to assign their rooms. So I think that's killed it, Jeff.
Was that a
think so
killer?
too.
Yeah, I was
I
kind
think
of
it doesn't let
wondering.
you.
Yeah. Okay.
The other thing
All
I'm
right.
curious about is if you give 3 poll choices and only 2 of the polls get responses, when it creates the rooms, does it kill that third room? That was a question.
And if you limit the number of people, it should, in theory, create double rooms to fit in all the people that made that choice.
Right. That's what, in theory.
Yeah, so
That's-
multiple session ones, if you will. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I would think as a programmer.
Yeah. All right. Well, keep these on our list. I kind of want to go through fairly standard first, and then circle back and start putting these questions to the test as well. So
Okay,
I've
so
undone that option.
you'll need to close that now.
Well, I'm going to test it out here.
No, you need to close it. Got to close it, Jeff, because you killed by hitting that checkbox. You killed the options, so no one's assigned anywhere.
I understand. I just I always like to click and confirm. That's all.
That's okay.
All right, so we're gonna close things down and do a recreate. The question here is, does it still keep all the results from the poll even when you do the recreate?
Well, your poll window is open behind you, so if you close that breakout room with the top X,
Says,
you could
do
then
do you wanna
restart.
recover to the pre-assigned rooms. All existing rooms will be replaced. I'll say sure and see what the results are. And there's still no assignments there. Got that off. All right, let's start over. So you got create, no limits, 3 rooms. And that option is still off. Open all rooms. Still not happy. Missed something. Closed. Let's start with the poll again. Relaunch. All right, so go ahead and did the poll pop out for you?
You need to click that continue button to relaunch it.
Oops.
It's in the middle of your screen.
Oh, golly. It's right there and I didn't even see it. There you go. All right, so go ahead and reply to that again and see if this will keep it moving. Okay, 8 of 10. In the poll, create the breakout rooms, create. Session 3 has 1, so we have numbers are on the votes were 2, 4, and 8. 3 has 1 in there. Are you guys getting any pop-ups yet? I know it's early, but nothing asking for your feedback or whatnot.
No, nothing.
You got 1 assigned. That is off. Automatically move. All participants can return. That's just the save. Can you guys hear my vacuum cleaner right now? Sorry about that.
Dale, did you cross your fingers when you answered that question? Is that why you've been letting the rest of us not?
Oh yeah, I just paused the vacuum cleaner. Yeah, so why? Recover to pre-assigned rooms. Recreate all rooms. Yeah, that doesn't do me any good. And strange. Relaunch the polls. Let's try it one more time, see if we get any different result. First time we got no assignments. Second time we got 1 assignment, pre-assignment. So our numbers are 4, 3, and 1.
Jeff, if I can just draw a conclusion from what we've seen so far, it's only adding the person who didn't vote previously, because previously we had 7 people, now we have 8, so there's 1 more. And the time before that we had 6, and then we went up to 7, so there's 1 more.
Maybe let's create a new poll and see if we get assigned. Maybe something got jacked up with this poll.
I'll go with that.
Okay, I just set up another meeting separately with 2 machines. Only 1 voted and it was put in the right room. So it does work sometimes.
I wonder if it works on the most basic level, meaning you create enough rooms for everybody and you don't assign like where it has to create an extra room. I'm not explaining.
Well, yeah, but we weren't putting a cap on the number of people
I
per
think
room.
the button was checked still that said 2 people per room. So I'm wondering if just bare bones works. And then when we start adding these extra little wonderful features.
See, I only had checked it. Well, I checked it for example, but I never created after I checked. So it
I
shows.
think it was checked last time, but
Oh, was it?
I'm just trying to see if it works at the minimal level.
Well, let's see if I can just crank the numbers up real quick before we start all over, and still that's all the same. All right, so let's go back. Now I have to find out where I gotta delete this thing. Oh my God. Duplicate, relaunch, download.
Is that a plus in the upper right of that window?
Yeah, that's to add. Here. We can add another one for sure. Next. Second try. Which session? Choice 1, 2, or 3. We'll keep that simple. Create breakout rooms. No anonymous. Save. Second try. Launch. Go ahead and pick away. Got 6 of 10. Anybody else? Feel like I should have that auctioneer voice. All right, there's our 8. Okay, so we'll end. The numbers are 3, 3, and 2 as far as distribution. Create. It is it is checking by default there, and it kept the 14 that I had put in there. I feel like which way you want to go here? Put a number
Uncheck
there
it.
and
Just
don't put a
hit
number.
create.
Okay.
And then just hit open rooms. Oh, you see they're not assigned. No, you can see they're not assigned.
Just the one is assigned. So strange.
I've just added a second person, so I've got 3 people in my
Yeah, so Dale just
meeting
got
and it
moved.
worked.
He got assigned and he got moved, but I'm not sure why nobody else is. So let's dig in a little
Is
further.
this at all related to the Zoom client that each of us may be using?
Oh, it absolutely
be.
can be. Yeah, I mean it. I think it requires 5.13.5. So I will go double check that, but pretty sure that's what it is.
Nope, I'm up to date. I'm at 5.13.6.
So it did just boot me into a breakout room. I'm not sure if anyone noticed that.
Yeah. No, we did.
Yeah. And I was gonna say, yeah, I might be on an old Zoom version actually. So I wonder if that's why I'm the favorite whenever you do this process.
Well, so what version are you on, Dale?
I'm gonna take a look right now. Let's see. Oh, whoops, I clicked the wrong. Let's see. I am on 5.11.10.
Look at that.
But it shouldn't affect him because he's just being shoved into breakout rooms, isn't he? It shouldn't have any effect on him.
I'm gonna reference it and see.
So I've got it to work on my system, so I'm now trying to break it to see what you did to stop it working.
So in the portal, if we bring this over. Trying to magnify the page. There we go. Where did it go? There we go. So allow host to create breakout rooms from poll results. says that this feature is only available with Zoom client version 5.13.0. Now, I don't know if that means just the host has to have that client and everybody else is okay. That may be the case, because
Yeah, because I'm on an
ultimately,
older version.
yeah, you're on an older version and it worked. And fact of the matter is there's really nothing new for you guys, as an experience, right? It's the automated creation based on the end of the poll. That's really kind of all host driven, if you will, right? And but it's been automated behind the scenes. So the result is when breakout rooms get open, same experience that we've all had as an attendee up to this point. So I think that may be a 5.13.5 requirement for whoever the host is going to be. And I'm on, I think, 13.5, because I think Mac went 13.6, but I think Windows is at 13.5. But let me double check.
Okay, so just answering one of your questions in my system that's working at the moment, I gave 3 options to 2 people. Those 2 people all chose the same room, and it only created that room. So the question about does it drop rooms that are not selected? Yes, it does.
Makes sense. Cool. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's.
Are you going in through, did you join this meeting through the web portal or through your client, your desktop client?
Yeah, through my client.
Because in looking at this thing, it says sign into Zoom web portal. I wonder if this is one of the things that you have to do if you've created the room through web only.
Let me see if I can. That's on the latest docs on this new breakout room from poll
I
features.
just looked at it. It said this was last updated January 16th. So I don't know.
Huh. Zoom poll.
It also could be something that just didn't get pulled over. I don't know how that would happen. In the later updates.
So here's their official walkthrough.
Okay, I don't want to slander anyone, Jeff, but the big difference between your system and mine is you've got ZoomISO. I wonder if that's got any problems with this system.
I'm not running ZoomISO right now. I mean, I am over on my Mac, but this is all being managed on
okay,
my PC as the host with the regular Zoom client. I don't think the Mac if the Mac were the host, I don't believe I could actually do this because it's not represented by the latest version. All right, so prereqs, breakout room, poll for meetings, and creation of breakout room for poll results must be enabled on the back end. Zoom desktop client for Windows, Mac, and Linux 5.13.5, and then single polling questions are the ones that respond to this. So set them up. So yeah, so sign into the Zoom web portal. I think this is to enable those pieces though. Access the poll quizzes you have created, either from poll quizzes tab or scheduled meeting. This feature only works on single. From the same window where you add polls, select create breakout rooms. I wonder why they. I mean, the interface on the local client gives you the option for breakouts and so forth. And John, I think you tested it all within the client, right? Or did you use the web portal at all?
No, I used the client as you did.
Yeah. From the same window where you add, select create breakout room checkbox to create breakout rooms and meetings based on particular answer. This feature will not work with anonymous. which we talked about. If your poll has multiple questions, you must select the Create Breakout Room checkbox for the specific question and click Save. Launch the breakout rooms from poll results. Launch your poll. Once you would like to stop the poll, you end poll. From poll quizzes results window, click Create Breakout Rooms. If your poll has multiple questions, you must click the Create Breakout Rooms button for the specific question you wish it be based on. Optional, in the Create Breakout Rooms window, you can decide how many participants you want in each. You can manually move participants around after you create the rooms. Click Create, hover, move or exchange, and open all rooms. I mean, I don't feel like, did anybody feel like I read anything that we didn't exercise?
I feel like this is the problem I was having the other day when I was trying it on my own. I was like, I don't understand. Why would we need this? Because I don't think it was working. I'm going to try it on my other computer and see.
I'm going to clean up all my polls. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to do that from the back end. I'm going to I gotta remember where the polls are. Go into the meeting, right? Meeting, yeah, polls and quizzes. Still trying to get used to these tabs across the top in the portal. All right, so polls and quizzes, it shows true too. It says the Zoom Test Kitchen poll is there. It says it's ended. Second try is ended. I can duplicate or remove, so I'm going to remove. I can't remove the second one. It's not going to let me delete while I'm here. I still have polls popped up on my screen. Involve you here, sorry. Yeah, it's not letting me end. I'm assuming that's because the meeting's running. Share the results. Oops. Yeah, I think before I launched them, I had a delete option, but I think once they're in there, they're not deletable. Duplicate, relaunch, download results, view. So it looks like they're locked in. That doesn't make it very easy to try to like completely start over. It's a fail. It's a fail right now. Not gonna do it. I mean, I can create another one while I'm here. I'm gonna go to I'll do an advanced this time. Single choice. Third attempt. Choice 1, choice 2, choice 3. Required show as drop down.
Okay, the other thing we assumed is correct. If you have one room with, in my example, 3 people voted for it, but I limited it to only 2, it creates 2 versions of that breakout room, puts 2 in the first one and the remainder in the second one.
With the same exact names?
Yeah, well, it calls, it was tea and coffee, the rooms, so it's T brackets 1 and T brackets 2. It's renamed them. So if you do have a reason for having a limit for number of people in a room, it's going to break them up into groups for you.
So that one that had not launched was deletable. The new one was not. All right. So that answers that. All right. So the third attempt. choice 1, 2, and 3. Required shows drop down, create breakout rooms. Breakout rooms will be created automatically. I really don't like the way it does that. Okay. Changes the whole interface. All right, not launched. Duplicate, remove. That's there. So if I then stop my share for a second and go to polls, I see it's interesting. So I've done, I had to do that twice, right? I created a third one called third attempt, right? Twice. And the first time I thought maybe I screwed something up because it came up as untitled advanced poll, but it just did it again. I'm in my client now, and it shows the third one, but it still says untitled advanced poll 2, although I named it third attempt. All right, so I'm going to launch this. If you want to respond. All right. End it. Create breakout rooms. Create. Nothing. All right. It's the
Jeff,
end
I
of
know
this
it
lesson.
sounds dumb, but would it be possible in the poll itself to type in a name for instead of just leaving the default choice 1, choice 2?
My very first attempt, I actually did type session 1, session 2, session 3 instead of the default choice.
And that worked until we changed the assignment to the rooms. Yeah.
Okay, let's give it a shot.
If you're a co-host, you can run a poll. Yeah. If you're
Yeah.
a co-host, you run a poll for a breakout room, you do not get the breakout room option given to you. If I run the same poll as host, I will get the breakout option.
If you're talking to us, we can't hear you.
Sorry. I was talking that whole time. I apologize. Is the problem you're trying to solve that folks who are responding to the poll are not ending up in the breakout room?
Correct.
So do you have on the back
they're not
end,
even ending up in the assignment list.
Right. So do you have on the back end though, for breakout rooms, do you have it set to manual, not auto? Do you have it set up for manual selection? Basically the people can all move around.
That shows up here. So
the assignment happens, David, before you get to that screen.
But isn't there on the back end a setting?
I don't think it's in the back end. It's under the options of there's an auto move or don't.
No, so if you I'm thinking about on the web portal, there is for breakout rooms, and I wonder if this account has this set, maybe. There's a, I wonder if, I'm sorry?
You're there already, I'll spotlight you.
I just wonder if there's some sort of, setting back here that's preventing this from happening.
Well, we read the prereqs, and the prereqs were you have to have breakout rooms, polling for meetings, and creation of breakout rooms from poll results must be enabled, and then it's only going to work on single choice questions. That was it. So Session 1, Session 2, create breakout rooms. It says that we created automatically. We didn't make it anonymous because we can't. If we do, it stops it. So a single choice, fourth question, session 1 or 2, create breakout rooms and save. Then I can make sure that's there. So I'll launch. Only 3 of you. Y'all getting tired. All right. So we've got, okay, 5, 6. Okay. All right. So we'll end the poll. We've got 4 in session 1, 2 in session 2. Create breakout rooms. Create breakout rooms. Decide how many you want. You don't have to do that, so I'm not. I hit create. Now, there's no indication of pre-assignment there. Allow participants to choose is unchecked. Allow participants to return. I'm just going to undo these. Automatically move. I think that auto push, you'd want to be a part of it. So I'll leave that. And then I'll open all rooms. I can't imagine anything good that's going to happen. Yeah, it opens the room, but nobody got assigned or moved. Yeah, not quite sure what's wrong.
I tried this last week and it worked for me when I was testing it.
You know,
I'm wondering if the big crash on Monday introduced any kind of back-end problems with Zoom.
I will, let me try one other thing. Yeah, based on that, it's good to know. I'm going to go to the back-end portal. And commonly this doesn't work live. You know, you have to kill the meeting and come back in, but I'm going to at least try it. So meetings, polls, and quizzes allow the advanced to edit. Alternative host can allow hosts to create breakout rooms from. I'm going to we did this like Hasma last week. What was the problem he was having? Can't remember. Anyways, the solution was to toggle it off and then toggle it on. And it reset. It was on. Well, I can't remember what it was. He had verified that what he was trying to do that required the back-end enablement, it was on. And when I jumped on with him, you know, we verified a few things. I thought, you know, go ahead and re-toggle that off and then back on, and bingo, everything worked the way it was supposed to, you know. So kind of weird, but I'm going to toggle all these things. Hit save. Hit save. Just going to toggle all this off and on. I just don't know that it's going to affect this meeting without resetting the meeting, but I'll at least give it a shot before giving up completely. Okay, so here we go. Now that they've been launched, duplicate, relaunch, download the results, and create a new. Number 5. Question number 5. That sounds like a song. Choice 1. So session 1. Session 2. Create breakout rooms. Save. Launch. Cross our fingers. Give it a try. put on the stream to see if this, oh, did I kill the
Hey,
share?
Jeff,
I
is
killed
it
the share.
possible that if everyone doesn't participate, then it can't populate the rooms? Because then it would have some people with nowhere to go?
Well, I mean, I figured they'd just get left in the main session, and I'd also figured that there would be a big documented shout out about that. Like, you can never force like 100% of your audience to, you know, do something. And people testing have had, you know, success as well. I mean, I tested this the other day, and you know, in my little world here of, you know, getting 4 or 5 systems into a meeting, and it worked. So not sure.
Are we supposed to be seeing breakout rooms as one of the options in the bottom of our?
Not yet. They're not open. Hi Lois, by the way.
Hi, Jeff.
So I you know, I did number 5 to answers, session 1, session 2, and I'm at the breakout room dialogue prior to saying open, where it shows the assignments, and there are no assignments. So yeah, this is something up. I mean, chances are toggling that off. I don't know what.
I've managed to break it a different way for you, Jeff.
Yeah.
You know, you did a question, then you put a second question in, and you said how you couldn't run the breakout rooms on 2 questions.
Yeah.
In the same poll. Well, I've just done what you did. I've selected 2 questions in 2 polls. I now have 2 poll questions, and I can launch the breakout room from either poll question.
And after you do that, on, let's say you select your first question and say, this is the one I want to do the breakout rooms for.
So I created 2 questions. After I created 2 questions, I ticked the box for both of them to say they're allowed to be breakout rooms. When I ran the poll, I then had the option at the end of the poll to choose the breakout rooms from the first question selected, or to choose the breakout rooms from the second room selected.
Do breakout rooms have to be open when you're doing all this?
No, because it doesn't open the breakout rooms until you get your poll results, and under your poll results, if it's applicable, you have create breakout rooms, a little button. The create breakout room then takes you to that normal breakout room button section that we have, which allows you to select everybody. I think you're right that you're not supposed to create 2 breakout rooms within 1 question, but I've just done it. And I have different answers for the 2 groups, so I can see that they've been selected correctly.
Well, I think maybe when I think about if I'm thinking about the right structure, there is the ability to say create breakout rooms from this question and that question and the next question. I don't know if that's a deal breaker or should be a deal breaker as much as just knowing that when you create them for this question, the only way you're going to successfully get them created from the second question is with a total undo and rebuild. And so it doesn't become additive. It's a kind of wipe out and replace is
definitely.
I understood it. So I think it's okay that
I see it, Jeff. I see it as an advantage. Because at the beginning of your conference, you could put up a poll question saying, these are the sessions that we have during this meeting, and you could choose them all up front. And then you'd have them all selected. And then all you need to, as long as you keep the poll up, you can then launch the breakout rooms whenever you need them. So I see it as an advantage. It makes it even more powerful for me, for my uses.
Yeah, no, I think it, it's one of those things. I mean, if it's checked, it can always just be optional, right? Like on the fly, you decide, no, we're not going to do breakouts as a result of that. And so you just don't. But yeah, we'll see. So yeah, this is not often I don't know if I've ever actually had a Zoom Test Kitchen session, trial where I go, this is a fail. And I'm not saying that necessarily for the feature. I just don't know. I don't have any further guesses without, I mean, the toggle, I'm actually, I actually have a pretty positive thought that the moment we end this meeting today and I go relaunch it and test it, it's going to work because I've gone to that back end portal and reset those toggles. Because I've had this happen, like on two completely different, one was time zone issue and the other one was Hasbucks, which I don't remember what wasn't working, but it fixed it, and so I am, I'm a little bit discouraged, but at the same time, I wouldn't be at all shocked, and I'll share, on the Discord, that, yeah, sure enough, after I restarted the kitchen meeting ID again, that it was successful. So, which is disappointing because it doesn't get in the archives, and I'm not here to stream to YouTube in the archives for failures, but hey, it happens. Better to do it here than in a live paid event. So it
it's part of the test kitchen experience.
good.
I like this.
Yeah.
Like, it's sad it didn't work, but I like that we're tearing it
Yeah.
apart.
Absolutely, no question.
So I have a question about
Yeah.
this and other things. So, this feature has a minimum requirement, a version requirement. What is the typical behavior when you have someone or people in the meeting who don't meet the minimum requirement for a feature? They just don't see it, or it doesn't work for everybody?
So I have a mental note. So I mean, and we've all got our different contacts, and so as a designated Zoom community champion, which is, from their community.zoom.us site where you can post questions and answers and all this and that. The reason I bring it up is they have a thread for us in Zoom team chat that is all the Zoom employees who manage and maintain everything around the community, and then all the designated champions as well. So it's a really good network of folks. One of them in particular is personally responsible for a number of the different products release notes that are documented and get out to us to read. And so he's got a pretty good line to certain products that with good detail and can run with questions and so forth. The reason I bring that up is it says there's a 513.5 requirement. I don't personally believe that that's across the board for everybody in the room, because the experience that you have as an attendee is not at all different. I mean, all you're doing is popping up polls and you're answering polls. And as a result, I, the host, am able to now take those. And I think the onus is on me, the host, that I'm at for 513.5. But my point being, and I'm going to go take this to Bart and ask him if that's true or not, and if there would be a way that can be just a little bit stronger documented that says, if there's a requirement of 513.5, that's a host requirement, or it's an all attendee requirement. Because I don't think this is an all attendee version requirement myself. I really don't, because there have been features in the past. I mean, breakout rooms was one of them. Some of you may polls maybe, or advanced polls. It was just the lack. Yeah, it was breakout rooms. All the lingerers in the main session who didn't get moved but had been pre-assigned, they were a version conflict, right? They didn't meet the minimum version, therefore they couldn't have the same experience. Then over time, there were certain features that says if you don't have this minimum version requirement, you don't get in the meeting. And those I think still exist, but that was a big problem. It really became evident with ZoomOSC and ZoomISO trying to log into a meeting, such as the Zoom Test Kitchen, because I kind of turn everything on so we can, potentially play with any feature, and I could no longer log in with. Now that was many, many months ago, but and that's improved huge over time, but there's just been this scale. So I'm going to take that and try to gain some more clarity on it, but I don't think, Frank, that 513.5 actually is your requirement. You know what I'm saying? As an attendee, I don't think it's an attendee requirement, but I need to.
I've had certain features prompted you couldn't get into the meeting without upgrading.
There are certain features that
yeah,
that cause that. Yeah,
it'll say you must upgrade in order to join this meeting, right?
Yeah. They, as a matter of fact, let's see if I can find this. I think I put it in notes. Yeah, we just met, and Bart let us know on February 4th, the oldest supported version will be 5.10.3 officially from Zoom, and then May 6th will be the next announcement and decision of that oldest supported version. And those are big moments, I mean, there's always nearby neighbor versions, right? And he explained that, they evaluate security fixes that may, be in a neighbor that will cause them to make some shifts in what that version is going to be exactly. But
well, it's a good thing.
On February, absolutely.
I like when they introduce that program. We do that internally. We force a minimum requirement version for security patches, stability, but also so that we can predict the behavior and plan ahead for teaching. So if you had a whole bunch of students who were on really old versions, and you're, as an instructor, try to build a teaching process for the Zoom meeting, if you can't rely on what version people are on, your teaching experience is going to be pretty poor, right? So by requiring a minimum version for the whole institution, we can say these features will work for everybody.
Yeah.
So I think it's good globally too.
Yeah, without question. It and when it's just a security, assessment, that's a good cover, but especially, educators who invest in what they're going to deliver in their lesson plans. Hang on.
In the chat, guys, I put the actual press release or the updated info related to the releases in there.
I've got a nasty throat itch. Oh boy. All right.
Yeah, this is good info shared, Mike. The Zoom has recently revised their cycle. So you guys are probably all aware that in November, they kind of forced everybody to do an update. And it sounds like their intention is to continue to do that on a, somewhat regular schedule. This press release that Mike just shared says 9 months is what they consider end of life. So they'll support a particular version for 9 months, and then at that point you'll be forced to upgrade to the next kind of minimum release. So it should be less of a problem going forward.
And they restate the new designated version every 3 months now. And so we were saying on February 4th is going to be 5.10.3, and he clearly stated that on May 6th, which is 3 months later, they will announce their exact version number that will move up to as well. So I did ask him for some clarity on the auto update, slow or fast. That's that explains a lot. I mean, I know I'm a consumer that desires a fast update because of what we do and and so forth. I mean, I could go fetch it, but rarely does it prompt me. I know a release is coming, and so I'll tell it to check for updates. I usually beat that, but I said, what does it mean? Because we were talking about, kind of latest releases, right? Latest versions versus most IT companies, development companies have, and at least internally, sometimes they go public with it. They actually have a stable, what they call a stable version, and this whole terminology gets, kind of misinterpreted, publicly. So sometimes they don't go public with it. But fact is their help desk statistics, drive a lot of most stable version versus the latest version, right? But that's primarily the difference between like the fast update option in our client versus the slow, and without publishing details about it. And so with that, it's interesting. I mean, I don't remember all the details, but they have, let's say a release engine, right? So they push the code, it's available. You have these two audiences that are, one group is set to fast updates, the other group is set to slow, and slow or normal, whatever that option is. And but that doesn't just open the gates either. They say, hey, we've released it, you're on fast, boom, every fast setting user is going to get it tonight. That doesn't happen, nor slow. And so they they'll adjust the dial, if you will, and say, okay, tomorrow and for the next 2 days we're going to release 1%, and then we'll turn that up another percent, and they notch up the release server, if you will, the release server's gate of, if you will, how much it will open to that entire group of fast updaters or slow updaters. And so as that one it is good for their servers because they don't get inundated and crash or things like that. But two, it gives them these paced number of days to measure its success or stability, and give them the ability to only have a fraction of their user base experience a bad issue. If there's a bad issue, they can close the gate, fix it, and re-push something, and so forth. So I thought it was explained probably way better than I re-explained it, but needless to say, it was really good for, one, healthy servers. Two, part of it is, you want to try to avoid headline producing events, right? And if you can have smaller segments of your customers, affected positively or negatively, it's still a small group that you have to, contend with, if you will. Mike, I see your message. Okay, so Q&A is enabled, by the way. Mike was just chatting, letting me know that Q&A is there, and he's actually submitted to it. And Frank put it there. We do like Q&A in the meeting session.
I guess the options in Q&A have been set by you, Jeff, that only the person asking the question can see the question until we respond to it. So we can't see the question.
Admittedly, it's enabled, but I have paid no attention to the configuration. So yeah, right now I can see it's participants can submit questions. They can do it anonymously as well, and then allow participants to view answered questions only. And so I'll change that to all.
Yep,
and
we can see them now.
And I'll let you vote, and I'll even let you comment. All right. So, all right, cool. Yeah, I haven't, Muddy, I mean, they're there here. I haven't used them in a production yet, but I know we've got some coming up that will probably leverage this, because you can only imagine so much more manageable, versus I have certain events that I don't even know why they turned the chat on, because nobody, I mean, even people that are chatting next to each other with hundreds of people in a meeting is just flying, you know. I mean, it's just not useful. Did you test creating polls from within the meeting, which is the only way I did it till the last try, as opposed to the web portal. When last
Yeah,
effort
you
was
were
in the web portal, but yeah, the
when
first one
when I
was web.
joined the meeting, you were in the web portal, so I missed the first ones. But when we were testing, we were using this feature in a meeting yesterday, creating the breakout rooms based on the polls, and all those polls. The three things I learned is all the polls that we created in the meeting seemed to work okay with the option to create breakout rooms based on responses. The second thing I learned is that co-hosts could not see the polls, could not see that option. Only the host could see the option to create polls. And even when someone else was made host, I was made host. I was the co-host at first, and I was made host. And then I could only launch the poll. I couldn't create or edit. It's only the host that could do that. Even the original host, not even someone else who was designated host. And then the third thing we learned is the thing you were talking about, the option to create breakout rooms based on the results. That's at the level of the question, right? So the specific question within the poll is where you have that option. So if you enable that for more than one question, you then have a drop down in the breakout room dialog box of which question you want to sort the rooms by, and we tried it several different ways, and that all seemed to work just fine. So just sharing my results, and I'm in a remote location, so I don't want to strain the try to do video and audio. I'd rather you can hear me. So thanks for letting me share.
Yeah, you bet. I'll be right back. Okay. No, I appreciate that share and experience. I need to find out why it didn't work for us, but that makes sense. Now, polls, I read somewhere and I can't find it right now. I don't think co-hosts have ever been able to do poll stuff except launch them as if they've been pre-built, right? They could launch, but the only other outside of the host, I believe, that can manage them are alternative hosts, not co-hosts, and they have the power to do that, but not co-hosts. So I suspect that maybe that'll change now that poll management is client based, a client and web portal, but no longer necessarily requires the web portal, although the data still ends up back there. So I don't know how Zoom makes all their decisions, even though it's client based, if it's still writing back to the web portal of the hosts, is that a deal stopper for them? And it's obviously not a deal stopper as far as cloud recording goes, because I can make Robert a co-host and he can enable and stop cloud records, and all that data ends up on my account. So it's not 100% sure on if that's just coming next, so there'll be a little bit more flexibility in that, and unload the host a bit, but we'll see. We'll kind of wait and see on that one.
Yeah, actually looking forward to seeing those different roles appearing in Zoom.
Yeah, there's so much coming. I have in that article that I wrote a week or so ago, what the heck is, what I title it, how the heck is Zoom doing this? The featured list, maybe you can you can reply, you know, if you have experience, but, you know, new and improved chat experience, which is, I think it's all turned on here. I'm pretty sure. I don't see a lot going. I mean, we have plenty of chat in here, but there's nobody really spending time with like special formatting or whatnot. I'm trying to scroll up and see. Yeah, I don't see any additional formatting, you know, bold and italicized and the size of the font and color and all that jazz. There's all kinds of all kinds of options we have for chat. Got file, screenshot. Don't need that. And then the you add the toolbar, the formatting toolbar as well. And then let's see if I've got, so Muddy, I'm just pointing at Muddy's. Yeah, so Muddy wrote, you know, this is a great new release cycle. And I can click on reply, and now it becomes threaded at that as well, right? And they stick together. I'll say, yes, it is. And just leave that. And now it's threaded, and others, you know, can go. My question is, you know, I mean, you know, still in a really busy chat. I was wondering, you know, does that, because I added a new reply to a previous written, maybe even older message, does it move itself down in the list as a new message, a new threaded message? Not that the original was new, but the reply was new, right? Because otherwise, how do you track? How do you jump around and see a new reply to an older, previously posted message? Go ahead.
And the message you replied to probably existed before I entered, because I can't see your reply at all, no matter how far back I go.
So do you have, so when you arrived, did you have any history, or did you have zero history?
Never have history on chat before I arrived. The first thing I have is Muddy to everyone at 126.
At 126? When did you arrive? 126?
125.
125.
I assume.
I thought they were going to change that and give us the historical chat when we joined late.
Yeah, I think so.
That was a new feature.
So which one, what message was it from Muddy? Say it again.
At
Lois.
126, he said, I tested this successfully in a meeting today.
Yeah, but there's one later than that, Lois, one at 138.
So yeah, so the 126, your 126, my 326. Okay,
I
so
did. I do see your message. It's tucked underneath something, and I didn't notice it. Apologies.
Yeah, well, no, but it goes to support my point of being able to be made aware of new replies to much previously written messages that are threaded, right? So it gets threaded and grouped, but it still stays way up in the history of the chat scroll, if you will, by all indications. I mean, I'm not claiming to fully understand, you know, how to navigate this either. I did notice when I went to chat, there was a red line that says new messages from there down, which, you know, that's new.
Jeff, that's not the way I see it on my screen. Sorry, Lois. I can see Muddy at 138. And then when you responded at 152, the whole of that message got pulled down to 152.
Not for me.
So it was like a newly written message when you saw it?
Correct. And this is Windows, by the way.
Yeah, I wrote it on Windows
You can
too.
screenshot it if you want to show us what you're seeing. It's a new ability.
Yeah. In the chat window, the second icon on the bottom is a screenshot icon. That's true. That's a great idea. but but my reply, the way I see it is I don't see it down in the thread. I scrolled up and found the post, right? And then I replied to it. So it's threaded, but my reply posts, it stays up there. So you're saying that everybody else does not see it that way. So do me a favor then, Robert.
I wonder
No,
if
I have to agree. I have to agree that it has moved down, because if you start looking at the timestamps of each of the comments, you can see that they've changed order. So that muddy to everyone. I've got okay, the hours are different for all, but 38 minutes is that message. But the message before it is now 51 because it has moved down.
Robert replied to what I did the first reply. So Muddy's first post was, "This is a great new release cycle." What started this conversation as I was testing the threading, and I said, yes, it is. When I did that, it stayed way up in the list and stayed there. But to Robert's point, and others experience it as well, is when you posted in that thread, Robert, "This is how I see it," and then you posted the screenshot as well, then that became visible to me as a new message in my chat. So if it comes from somebody, you can see it there. But if you post a reply in a thread that's previous up the list, it doesn't do that to you.
That's exactly what I'm seeing. I'm seeing it nested way up above.
When you replied. So if you replied to it, you know where the message is because you replied to it up in the thread. But for everyone else, it brought it down to make it current.
Well, I mean,
not everyone. Not everyone.
Well, you got to tell us more than that, Lois. What does that mean?
Well,
not everyone.
It's still nested way back up there. The message at 38, and then I see the replies underneath that message at 52 and 56, but they didn't jump down below the 44s.
Is this on your Mac, Lois?
It is on my Mac.
Yeah, and I'm on a Windows machine.
I'm wondering if maybe I don't have a late enough version to make this happen. Is that possible?
What version are you on?
It is 5.13.3.
No, it's not that old.
The reason my hand was up, Jeff, is I was wondering if you would reply to a message that is before 126 and see if I can see it. So like, a long time ago, and see if I can see it, if it pops into my chat, even though I can't get before 126.
No, yeah, that's good. Let me look at this. Let me try to reference real quick this version requirement.
Lois, do you get the little pop-up that says one new message if you're scrolled in one direction and it then tells you there's one new message?
If something comes in after I have looked at the bottom and I'm further up, yes, I get a little 5 new messages now down at the bottom. But the nesting doesn't change. And I am on a Mac.
So I mean, I'm here on the back end. Let me, I think since I'm here and I'm seeing it, it didn't really register to me before, so maybe it'll be helpful to you as well. So in the chat area, in the chat settings, it says, that's not the one. The new meeting chat experience is what I'm looking at. It kind of caught my eye. Allow meeting participants to use new meeting chat features, including threaded replies, text formatting, quoting, inline image preview. And so you just toggle that on. There's no version requirement there. Allow participants to delete messages, which was one of the earlier features that they added. So that's 5.13.0. Enable the screenshot feature. Even though you enable the new meeting chat experience, you still have to go a step further with the screenshot enablement and emoji reactions and so forth as well. So the screenshot requires 5.12.6 and allow participants to react to meeting chat messages is 5.13. And so you said you were 5.13 something, right?
Yeah, at 3.
Okay.
And I trying to go back and get a history. I have now gotten a message from no particular person. It's just an exclamation point. It says unable to show history due to admin setting.
Huh.
It's your fault.
I'm okay with that.
This guy is dangerous. He keeps breaking stuff.
I know, right? Let me to history. I wonder if that's me, the admin. I mean, like for Zoom to use the word admin feels like it's more about an account setting, you know, that you're using, the one you're on, versus when they use the word host. You know what I'm saying? But
You think I have to go and change something on my settings?
it's in the, I would say in the client, if that were the case, it would be client, not portal. The portal is really all about hosting meetings, right? And those options. The client can be more more about you know, that type of experience. So maybe if somebody
I'll
lets
just leave.
poke around
I'll
the
just leave.
client and
I'll
team,
go away,
team chat.
update, come back. I'll leave.
But I'm going to I've got a few more clicks to do to see if I can find like his chat history, see if I have an option.
Jeff, Muddy just posted something in the chat. He said that it says message sent before you joined the meeting.
Yeah, that suggests to me that it can't connect the reply to the message because the message isn't in his list of messages because he didn't join before the message was sent. Oh dear, I didn't explain that very well. Sorry. The message, the original message was sent, then he joined, then the reply was sent, but his computer can't attach the reply to the message because it hasn't got the original message. There are better versions.
And I'm on an iOS device at this point because I'm mobile right now. But just posted another reply or another screenshot. I can see the replies because the replies happened since I've been here, but it doesn't show me the original message, which is interesting.
Yeah, I do remember them saying that they were going to change this so that you would get all the messages in the chat, but it was something to do with the rollout of this general chat options to have chat not just in the meetings but through the whole system, the whole ecosystem.
There's a revision to this schedule for March. I have a ticket open because the new chat experience breaks the chat history in breakout rooms and stuff, which I'm sure lots of you know about. So a lot of instructors had a freak out because, you know, they leave instructions for what you're supposed to do in the breakout rooms and it didn't carry over. So I opened a ticket. I'm sure other people did, but Zoom support told me that they're aware of the issue and it should be, they've scheduled sometime in March to fix it.
Yeah, I think the whole chat migration is taking many steps and they can't just do it in one jump.
Yeah,
and that's causing
it's
them problems.
been progressive for sure. So that's cool. Very cool. All right.
By the way, I'm an owner of a Zoom phone number now, and I'm finding it really great fun.
Oh, there you go. David is away from his desk. He got a new business account and about pulled his hair out and wanted to start beating people up, I think, because he was having such a challenge trying to get his other accounts migrated. But I think they finally got it worked out. But I think it had to be done on the back end too. You know, it's like, oh, the next time this happens, this is what you need to do. That I don't think was part of the resolution. So he still probably feels like his hands are tied.
One of the side effects, it seems, of having a Zoom phone account is you can start creating all your users to have, although you've only registered one phone number and paid for one outgoing call, you can register all your other user devices in your system with internal phone numbers, and it seems you can phone each other. Only one of them is allowed to do outgoing calls, but it seems like you can all phone each other, and I think it looks like you can all grab the external incoming calls, but I haven't gone to that level of testing yet.
Huh.
I can pick up phone calls on my laptop or my phone. So it's
Okay, so
with iOS and Mac OS X, right? So
that's
similar
great
to
because
that.
I was worried that when Zoom Phone first came out, it was very much a corporate product, but now I can see ways that you could use it even in smaller businesses.
Good stuff.
John, have you tried moving your phone call across to a meeting?
No, I haven't, but I have just ordered myself an IP phone that is compatible with Zoom because unfortunately the ones I've got here aren't. And I'm going to have a big play with it next week. So I'll be able to let you know next Friday what works and what doesn't.
Brilliant. So I think Lois is putting up her hand, Jeff.
Yep. Go ahead, Lois.
Okay, so I went out, I updated, I came back. I still can't get history, and I was really silly. Before I left, I did not save chat. So I lost all those messages that we had.
If you want them, I'll get them to you.
That's okay. And then the Q&A did stay. I am able to see the Q&A from the very first one that went in there. So it did not dissolve when I left. And I'm assuming people who came in even later would still be able to go back and see that. Andy's here. I know he came in recently. Okay, so you're even now.
And Frank reminded us of I think a noted release that said that there's a breakage in chat history that they're trying to get fixed and pushed out. So it's just this whole progression of the, chat as it used to be to merging into team chat, kind of full rich features. And I think history is a piece of the issue that we still have yet to see. I think it'll become very natural here shortly. Yeah, Lois.
Jeff, do you know if there is still a restriction on how much you can post in a message? That is to say, if someone were to go, oh, I have that history, get the history of chat, go post it in a new message and post that whole history of chat, would it work? It doesn't in the old one because you have a certain character limit.
So I'm copying the article I published last week to my clipboard, and I'm going to try to paste it. Yeah, it says, well, it's not very helpful, but it says your message is too long. Please try sending multiple shorter messages. So
it tells you. That's very good.
Yeah.
Before it didn't.
Didn't tell me how many, but I mean, my article's not huge, but at the same time, it's still too long. So yeah, it does let you know. And it's kind of cool because I mean, in my meeting chat window right now, I had scrolled up to reference history, and it's staying there with a red box of 17 new messages that I can click on, and it'll, jump me down to the newest and so forth. I mean, just, there's lots coming along. My text is large right now because I was trying to increase the font size in my web browser, not realizing that my last focus was my chat window. And so, but control plus or command plus and minus will adjust your font size so it makes it more readable.
Is the Q&A message size the same as the chat message size, or is it bigger or shorter?
Mine is I guess it's the same default font size, but Q&A,
I meant length.
You can't plus and minus, you can't change dynamically the font size. Where chat, if I just click into chat and do control plus and minus, it'll make it larger, magnified or not,
I meant the length, the number of words.
Oh, yeah, I don't know. They don't really talk about it, so I don't really think about, word limits. I did bring up word limits or character limits. I didn't have the answer. It used to be in somewhere between 35 and 40 for a poll answer. Or no, breakout room name is what I had counted quite a ways back for a customer. And but it seems to have gotten longer. you kind of figure the answers of polls now would have to have some alignment with breakout room name limitations as well. Like where their caps should, you'd figure would kind of have to be the same, because of the usage of the name in the poll versus the creation of that name in a breakout room now. So that could be a reality. Have to check on. Okay. Trying to see if there was anything else that really caught me that wanted to squeeze in. I will I'll let you know. Andy Lipnick is here towards the kind of latter part of our meeting, because we're going to be, Andy and I are helping. But I mean, it is your cousin, right? He is your cousin as well.
It
He's
is my
his
cousin.
but there's a memorial service tomorrow that is a mix of in person and virtual, and Andy is not going to be in person. He's going to be virtual, but he's also going to be technically involved, and I'll help with that as well. So Andy and I are going to, and we're going to do it in the test kitchen, but if you'd like to hang, you're welcome to. I'm just not going to. I'm going to do it for Andy and I's benefit at the pace that we need to do it. I'm not going to do it in the format or pace or troubleshooting questions or things like that, like the Zoom test kitchen does. And so, but we're going to build out his stream deck with Companion to do some spotlights. Not a huge crowd. What did we say? 10 to 20 at most, probably online. But we're going to put together a page or two with ZoomOSC Companion and a stream deck, and let the event itself kind of drive the exercise and make the work a little bit easier on his part, and go from there. So that's coming. Now I have to get to Dale, who's back, and because Dale shared with us earlier that he had some specific questions and inquiries and so forth, that I kind of give you the floor a bit, and let's have a just kind of open discussion and see who can help you out the best, Dale.
Sure, I appreciate it. So I'm kind of new to all of this, and only recently became aware of ZoomISO. But basically, I work for a company that we facilitate meetings, and we're trying to essentially let people tune in on a meeting in progress. So it's like sending a Zoom within a Zoom. And I'm a really visual person. So if I could screen share, I can kind of show you what I've mapped out. And I'm essentially looking for people to kind of like, people who know more than I do about it, to look it over and say, yeah, this is good, or yeah, this is bad, or here, you should do this instead.
Sure. Yeah, you can do that now.
Yeah, let me just share here. So I'm kind of an illustrator by day, but I do a lot of routing diagrams and things like that. So I assume you all can see this. And essentially what we do is we take two Zooms. So these kind of blue participants over here, we call them the presenters, right? So this is one meeting in progress. And then all of these sources come into Zoom. And then this is how we've been doing it, was just sending it out over an HDMI cable into another computer. And then we were adding titles, like, lower thirds, things like that would be done through OBS Studio. Mm-hmm. So essentially OBS Studio is then taking that entire participant, or this should say presenter, actually, presenter. Presenters. So it's taking that entire webinar, adding graphic overlays on top of it, and then sending that through NDI to another Zoom. So, and then that Zoom meeting is attended by observers who are essentially like department heads and things like that, they're not participating in the meeting. They are just kind of observing the meeting in progress. So the trouble comes with this is that, like, whenever we can't really use active speaker view given the nature of how it is. So this coordinator that sits at this computer on the left is essentially using Zoom like a video switcher, right? They'll pin whoever's speaking for as long as that needs to happen, and then they'll unpin that person and go to gallery view, for example. And these two people sitting here kind of verbalize back and forth to each other like what's happening, so that, you know, the producer on the right can pull the lower third down at the right time. And it actually looks pretty good from the perspective of these folks here in this Zoom meeting. It looks fine, but it's super tedious for these two people. It's because they're clicking and talking and clicking and talking. And it's kind of ridiculous. And I only recently became aware of ZoomISO, which, if I'm understanding it correctly, I've watched all of Andy Carluccio's content pretty much, and it seems like it's essentially going to take all 5 of these video sources in addition to the gallery view and screen share and pull those as independent video streams. So this second drawing here that I'm showing you now was kind of like, we haven't implemented any of this yet. This is kind of like the plan of where it seems like I should go, but without having like installed any of this stuff or tested any of this stuff. I just kind of wanted to get like an overview of like, should we be using, instead of OBS Studio, should we be using something else? And I've seen Andy using Isadora in a lot of cases, and I'm like, oh, should that be a component of this? So these are just like things that I'm not super aware of, but functionally, in thinking about it, I was making this drawing and I thought, okay, functionally, this seems like it should work. But I also haven't seen a lot of people doing this using OBS Studio either. So the idea that a Stream Deck would then control like the switching, like scene switching of OBS Studio, switching of all these independent sources, we would gain a lot of flexibility, it seems like, by at least implementing this exactly as I see it. But you guys are way more experienced with this than me, and I was just curious if you see anything here that like, oh yeah, maybe you should do this differently. Maybe ZoomISO shouldn't be running on this computer. Maybe Siphon is better than NDI. I don't know. I'm just throwing things out there.
Sure. I mean,
a lot of hands up. So
you you definitely have, I think, a great foundational grasp of, you know, with a dream and a vision and so forth. And I don't think you're off base at all. Get ready for the opinions, you know, of each of us, right? That
yeah, absolutely.
you know, that have our history and so forth. I'm a vMix user. I don't know if we have OBS users here or not. We may, and you know, Robert certainly has, and John and so forth, you know, certainly have experience around here as well. There's multiple ways, you know, but the logic, you know, with a vision mixer in play, I'd say the missing component potentially, if you go down to the bottom right, I think of your creation there where you list the products,
this
is ZoomOSC, and I don't know if you're familiar with or whatnot, but like ZoomOSC, imagine you know, let's say you're tightly within the constraints of a Zoom only environment, but you know, you go, well, Zoom has shortcuts, and the Stream Deck app, I can execute those shortcuts, but those shortcuts are pretty limited in the sense that I want to spotlight you. You know, there's no shortcut for that, you know, or I want to spotlight you, and then I want to add Robert to make it a double spotlight. Can't do that. And when I spotlight you, I want to unmute your mic. And when I spotlight you, because you had your hand raised, I want to lower your hand, unmute your mic, and spotlight you all in one button. And and so that's the magic of ZoomOSC, because a lot of those things can be accomplished through the SDK of Zoom, and that's what Andy and his group did with OSC, and then adding ISO for the video and audio and so forth. So if you still have things that you need to manage inside Zoom, I'd say you'd want to make sure. Depends on where your audience is though too. If your audience is not in the or a Zoom meeting, then it may not make a difference. It might be a meeting and you just spotlight, or a webinar and you spotlight, and that's the only spotlight you're going to have the whole time, because it's more of a theater type delivery. But if you still at the end of the day need to manage mics and hands and spotlighting, and so I mean, you can at a push of a button. We were testing a week or two ago, sending custom chat messages, things like that. That's all doable as well. So
Okay.
it's one of those things. You have Companion that has modules that let you communicate with. Zoom has written to it. ZoomOSC is written to it. ZoomISO is written to it. OBS is written to it. vMix is written to it. ECAT, I mean, they have over 200 vendors, and so on a single console now, you can, with a single button, you can potentially do things to any one of those components in your production chain, if you will. And I think ZoomOSC is the only thing I see glaringly missing, potentially on your list. Outside of that,
Right.
I'm gonna let. Well, I will.
Can I ask a quick question about what you just said? So you mentioned, I know that there's been multiple mentions of it's BitFocus Companion, right?
Yeah, BitFocus Companion is the free software. Yeah.
Right. And that seems to help facilitate. Does that replace the Stream Deck app for?
Yeah, I mean, yes and no. So some people just use the Stream Deck app, but they're in the production world that we live in, it doesn't reach as far to as many vendors and the flexibility and so forth that Companion does. So for the longest time, you had to make a choice between one or the other, Stream Deck app or Companion. Now you can actually add a plugin and enable the ability to use them both together. But I still see posts where that still can kind of cause problems. So I think the most flexibility in the production space anyways that you're going to get is Companion itself, and just kind of don't tie in too deep to the Stream Deck app. But
Okay, so you would essentially replace this little block here would base, if I wanted to visualize it, I would replace this block with BitFocus Companion, and that would facilitate this connection between the hardware and whichever streaming software I'm using.
Yeah, and replies in this conversation is yes, I would. And there, others certainly, may have different experiences that fully support not doing it that way, but we'll see. So I'm gonna mute and let some of the other guys. So Robert is up first.
Hi Dale, nice visual.
Thank you. Yeah, I kind of have to see it myself before I get too confused if I don't do this first.
Yeah. I'm going to share my way of doing it, as opposed to sort of criticizing what you've done, because I don't feel that I'm in a position to do that.
Okay.
I like to have all of the production components on one computer. Yeah.
Okay.
It just makes it so much easier using the tools that Jeff just mentioned, and to manage whatever is going on. So in my world, where you have on the left the webinar with the presenters, I would have ZoomISO running there and nothing else, because out of ZoomISO, you would pull in all of the screens, all of the audio channels from the individual presenters.
Okay, so ZoomISO would run, well, let's see. So you would have Zoom you would still have this Zoom session running, or
Yeah,
would-
I'd have I don't know if I'd use a webinar, but irrespective of whether it's a webinar or a meeting, I'd
Okay.
have ZoomISO running on that machine, which would allow me to pull out the video and the audio of the individual presenters
Okay.
into NDI, of course. And then I'd pick them up in your scenario over here in NDI over OBS, and then I'd do all of the production work at this level.
Okay.
Yeah.
So similar, but basically taking this ZoomISO from here over to here.
Correct.
And then transmitting that via NDI.
Yeah, correct.
The
And
network.
then the easy way, if you're stuck in OBS, is to attach a layer with the bottom third or the lower third to the individual stream, so that if it's just a name, if you're not changing the message that's going on, if it's just a name, a title, etc., that would be the easiest way to do it. And then the switching in OBS can actually be done by a Stream Deck without Companion. Yeah? That would be a simple way of doing it.
Okay.
What Jeff is talking about, which is really cool, is to have someone in the left-hand side webinar with Companion managing the presenters so that they don't speak over each other and they don't get messy at this end. Yeah?
That's kind of the role of the coordinator, really. That's kind of what we had envisioned in setting this up, is the coordinator, they kind of need to manage the participants of like, hey, Joe, your camera's pointed at the ceiling, or hey, can you center yourself in the screen a little bit better? Things like that come up all the time, and that person can't really focus on that. When you get enough people in the room, that person can't really focus on that and switch cameras via pinning with their mouse. It's way too much for that person to do. Now, we have a really good person doing it. She's very good, but it's this needs to be a role that we can train others how to do.
Okay.
So,
and the other question, I just let other people, I'm sure there's some really good, you get some really good input from other people, but the question I'd ask myself is there any communication between the observers and the presenters?
no, and that's actually kind of by design, right? That like there sort of needs to be the whole part of the whole idea of this was that the observers don't interact with the presenters. So
okay, cool.
Otherwise, yeah, we would just do it in like a single Zoom session.
Okay. I thought maybe you don't want the presenters to see the observers, so that would be a reason to separate them out or put them into
There kind of is, yeah, there is supposed to be like kind of some anonymity there in this particular case.
Okay, that's my 2 cents. I'm sure other people have got lots more interesting stuff to say.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
I think John's next on the list, if I can pass the baton on.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Yes, of course, I'll be at the top of the list anyhow, because it's me. So I didn't know if I was at the top of the list or not. So I'm going to be more complicated than Robert in some areas and less complicated in others. Okay. Your original layout is how I started my medical meetings. Our medical meetings, we separated into 2 rooms because the presenters during the breaks and sponsorship messages like to be able to talk to each other. So they like to be in a room of their own. And that's why we started with 2 Zoom sessions.
Mm-hmm. This is now a similar scenario. Yeah.
Yeah. So the Zoom client that's running the speakers is a Dell laptop with 4 possible screens on it. And so I used the dual screen option in Zoom to give me 2 layouts. So I can have one screen showing a presentation and one screen showing whoever I'm going to highlight and pin as presenters.
That's exactly what we're doing. Yeah.
Right. Then I'm taking the data. I'm not using ISO. I've been waiting for the new Mac Mini to come out to try and justify paying for it. I'm actually using an A10 Mini, which I've got 2 of them actually. So I'm using an A10 Mini, which is taking the screen output of those 2 screens that are being presented in Zoom and allows me to select one of them, or I can do an inset, and that goes to the producer computer, as you call it, as the content to be shown. And I use vMix to do my lower thirds and graphics over the top of that. And that's how I set up my system.
Okay.
I have less presenters than you, but I'm gradually having more presenters because we're doing bigger events. And I'm starting to use Companion to control things, because there is so many things I now want to hit at the same time. Raise lower hands, mute somebody, turn on the video, put their lower third on vMix. If you sit down and work through all the stages, you can do that in Companion and dedicate those actions to one key press to bring up a new presenter, put them in the right place, give them the lower third, all in one go, because Companion can talk to multiple devices. So it can talk to your, as you call it, your coordinator computer and your producer computer at the same time. In fact, in my case, it can talk to my A10 Mini at the same time if you program it right. And you obviously you do it over stages because it's quite complicated, but as it builds up, it becomes very clever. So my stage at the moment is I'm working on the ZoomOSC, which we were talking about in the last meeting, to get it to work properly in the way I'm using it, so that I can very quickly see who the presenters are, and I can choose which presenter is going to be seen and heard and going to the other screen and getting their lower third up so that they can be announced who they are. And with vMix, you can have a lower third on a schedule. So the lower third will come up and it can automatically disappear in 20 seconds. So you don't have to worry about it. You just set and forget.
Yeah, this is exactly the kind of stuff that I'm looking to do. So it sounds like that. And that, I'm sorry, you said that was kind of a BitFocus companion feature.
Using BitFocus Companion to be the controller to control everything.
Right.
Whether it then goes to a Stream Deck or any other MIDI device doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That's your choice.
Okay.
Most of us are using Stream Decks because it is probably the most useful one when you can have all the feedback graphics.
It's pretty simple, and the ability to customize the buttons could be pretty huge. So yeah.
Yeah. And also it's the only device that I know of where you've got a press down and a release. And there are quite a few times when the ability to start an action with a press down and then do a second part of it with a release is really useful.
Okay.
So sometimes I do press down will prepare the speaker, but letting go makes them alive to the other place, the other computer.
What do you mean by prepare in the down press?
Turn on mic, turn on your camera.
Okay.
But until I release, I'm not, and I know that you're ready, I'm not going to project you onto the other screen.
Okay. Cool.
So I can get them prepared on that machine, but I won't, until I release, the A10 won't send their video, or sometimes I have it in vMix. vMix won't send their video. And as I said, the advantage for me for using the two screen systems is we have sponsor messages, we have breaks, we have breakout sessions. And at that point, the presenters can all chat amongst themselves because they're completely disconnected from the other room. This backstage that you have in Zoom is great for a beginning of a meeting, but you can't use it in the middle of a meeting, which is why we continue to use the two. And actually having the two separate meetings means that if somebody wants to do the chat and wants to monitor chat, then they just run a separate Zoom on a laptop, on an iPad or something like that, into the meeting where all the producers, all the viewers are, and they can then see that separately. And as most of the users that I have wouldn't be able to run a chat window and do a PowerPoint presentation on their one computer because they've only got typically a laptop with one screen, that is actually an advantage to them.
Okay.
So I've taken the video signals, but I've not used OBS to bring the videos, to mix the number of videos in. I'm using the selection on the computer to choose the people, which is a nightmare, but actually it's a lot less of a nightmare if you've got Companion running.
You're using the selection on the computer. Can you say that one more time?
Yeah. So I have Companion programmed with each speaker, so I can highlight a speaker and they will go live on the screen on the coordinator's computer.
Uh-huh.
That is got a video splitter on it. So not only is it on that screen, but it's also now a feed coming out of my ATEM. You know the ATEMs.
Yeah, I'm familiar. That's the hardware.
So I got a 4. So it's effectively a 4. In my case, it's a 4 video switcher.
Okay.
So I've got 2 screens. I've got the presenter screen and I've got the PowerPoint's shared screen on that computer. Both of those are video HDMIing into that ATEM video switcher, and I can then use those to send into do the presentation. So typically they get a full screen version of the PowerPoint slides, and then there'll be a little inset in the bottom left, top right, top left, top right, whichever is being chosen of the video at the face of the presenter.
Okay.
So in OBS, you would call it scenes. In vMix, we basically just set the same idea up.
So
it's only possible, really, if you use Companion, because I think you'll find that all the things that we suggest, we're wanting to do 2 or 3 or even 4 things at once, and the only practical way to do that is to use Companion.
Okay, so the Stream Deck app sounds like that would be okay if it was only communicating. Well, kind of as I've drawn it here, it's communicating directly with OBS. I think is generally how it functions.
Yeah, but we're not using the the Stream Deck app.
It would be very limited compared to Companion. And it sounded, if I heard you correctly, I think you said earlier that Companion could also, let's say, can you see my mouse?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like if this is replaced with Companion, which it sounds like it will be, I believe you said it can also communicate though across the network with this Zoom session as well.
Yes. And you could even have another device. You could have an iPad with all the main buttons on it, and that could talk to Companion.
All right. It sounds like I need to get more involved with Companion then, because it sounds like that will be. It may not be the flexibility I need for this basic setup. So this is kind of a pretty basic and typical setup for us, but it wouldn't be probably scalable with the Stream Deck app, it sounds like. So thanks for that recommendation.
You're welcome.
It does sound like it can get very complicated though, but I like getting stuck into some of that stuff. So
yeah, and also I think you'll notice from the comments we're all going to give, there's not just one way of doing this. There's lots of different variations depending on what equipment you have and limitations.
I mean, and I do try to keep it as simple as I can from the get-go, but we've been doing kind of this mouse activated thing for too long, and this feels like the next level. So
definitely. But
yeah, it sounds like Companion is going to do more of what we need ultimately. So thank you.
Okay, I'll pass you over to Justin, I think is next.
All right. Thank you so much, you guys, this is just really great feedback.
Thank you, John. So Dale, your diagram is fantastic. And you can do this with OBS. And I do agree. Companion is a great option to control both OBS, ZoomISO. Once you get into the ZoomOSC that Jeff mentioned, to like if the speaker's camera's off, you can request them to turn their camera on. You can request either unmute or unmute them depending on how your meetings are set up. You can mute the presenter or the previous speaker. Like all that stuff can be controlled through ZoomISO, which comes with ZoomOSC. And Companion is one option. Luckily enough, it's not the only option, but it's probably the easiest option to honestly get started with. And price-wise, you can't beat free. And so I would start
Companion
there. Yeah, Companion is free. It's open source. It's a great spot to start. It can control lots and lots of things in here. The spot that I may switch out is you mentioned NDI versus Siphon. And so I was setting up some of the same stuff on a Mac yesterday, actually, and it was suggested to me to switch out the NDI for Siphon just from a resourcing standpoint. I think they mentioned NDI was quite weighty compared to Siphon for this kind of a setup, especially because it sounds like you might be all Mac in this case.
I am. That's something I should have mentioned. And that was something Andy had mentioned in one of his things too, was that Siphon was maybe better or a little more streamlined, I guess, would be a simple way to say it.
Yep. And
But the,
I know
the main drawback being that it can't run over the network, though.
Yep. Yeah, there are some drawbacks, but if you're going right from OBS Studio right out to the observer meeting, you're all within the same computer, so no issues and that side of it. The one thing to be aware of with ZoomISO is as you add more participants, your network bandwidth consumption does become a concern, especially depending on the resolution you're pumping out. Like if you're doing a bunch of stuff at 1080, like say you had 9 participants at 1080, it's a decent amount of bandwidth that you're going to be drawing in there, especially in high bandwidth mode. So you just got to make sure you have enough bandwidth to sustain that piece of it as you potentially grow it in there. The other piece I don't know that you can get in ZoomISO, at least I haven't seen the option myself, is the gallery view. So you may still need something besides ZoomISO for the gallery view.
Oh, really? Okay.
I'm just starting using ZoomISO with you. I'm only slightly in front of you. It sounds like,
okay.
But I haven't yet seen a gallery view. I've seen the share screen. I've had some issues with getting it to work for share screen, but everything else worked well. The one place that you might be able to test it, I can definitely test this out, is there's another forum called Office Hours. And in there, they actually have something called After Hours, which is a 24/7 Zoom room. And within that Zoom room, they have a breakout room dedicated to testing ZoomISO. They have 12 bots that are running on a continuous loop in there, so that you can come in and you can test out all the pulling in those centers, doing things like you want to do with OBS, and you can test all of that stuff out. The only thing they ask is you not to take the recordings that you're making and actually distribute them, but you can do all the testing. And a lot of times there are people like us just hanging out in after hours. And so I've had many discussions. That's how I learned the OBS and Siphon stuff. Last night I was just hanging out, configuring stuff, and asked, hey, does anyone use OBS on a Mac? And my guy's like, oh yeah, that's my main thing. And we talked through trying to get NDI working, trying to get Siphon working. And so that might be a spot.
Okay.
So to sign up for that, if you just search for Office Hour, I believe their website actually is officehours.global.
Okay. All right.
And you will see, if you click on the schedule tab, you'll see a spot that says register for after hours. So if you go do that, then you can come on and join that and play around with ZoomISO and play around with at least up to 12 people.
That would be great. Yeah, because that's inherently one of the challenges, right? Is like getting people to. A lot of times we just have to do something internally. It's like, hey, can everybody kind of join the Zoom meeting real quick, and so we can test this thing out, and people aren't always available. So
exactly, and having people like us in there, so if you do get stuck on something, and you could pop out of that breakout room back in the main room and ask, hey, I'm having this. Anyone know anything about this? And I find many times there's people hanging out that have lots of knowledge in that room to help.
So a quick question for you about the Siphon. So back to I'm forgetting his name. Robert had an early suggestion that I run ZoomISO on this coordinator computer on the left. If I did that, I would then I wouldn't be able to do Siphon in that case, I don't think, right? Because Siphon won't work over the network and it would need to pass. I'm kind of thinking out loud here.
And for your scenario, I'm not sure that it totally matters where you run it, because ultimately you're going to have another Zoom meeting that you're going to need to pump it out to in there.
Right. Yeah, because that was one thing that I thought when I kind of finished this drawing. I was thinking about NDI, and I thought it doesn't look like there's any reason I couldn't run Siphon in place of both of these NDI boxes here to just transmit.
I will say though,
the
one thing potentially is you can only join ZoomISO to one meeting. And so to get your stuff into that Zoom observer meeting, you're gonna have to play around with that a bit to see how do you get your stuff from ZoomISO into OBS and then get OBS into that Zoom observers meeting. So that might be the one thing to play around with a bit.
I think so. If I drew it out correctly, the ZoomISO would only join this meeting over the network, but I guess it would need NDI to join this meeting though, correct? Or I might be.
ZoomISO actually joins the meeting like a normal Zoom
Yeah,
client.
that's right. Yeah, I'm sorry. You're yeah. So ZoomISO would basically just join this meeting like anybody.
Exactly.
And then to get it into OBS, you could use Siphon to take each of the, well, it looks like we got 7 video feeds here. Use Siphon to send all 7 of those into OBS. That's kind of how I was initially thinking of it, but that may or may not be possible. That's a thing I need to test.
Yeah. And as you can tell from this, I think the big thing for you is just to test it out.
Yeah.
Because you're familiar with OBS, I would stick with OBS.
Mm-hmm.
There's lots of things. There's vMix, there's Mimo, there's all kinds of stuff, but since you're already using OBS and it's working for you, just stick with it. It'll still work with ZoomISO.
So the big thing with OBS
vMix doesn't support Mac, so it's not an option for you.
Okay, that's good to know. I think Ecamm was the other big one that I've seen. There's lots of streaming options. Yep. I think honestly, the big benefits to OBS are, number one, it's free. Number two, it seems highly configurable. There doesn't seem like there's a lot that it can't do, but it's definitely not like purpose built like some of these others. Like we've used one called Livestream Studio before, which I think is now owned by Vimeo, and that was much more like kind of purpose based for people who want that like studio setup with monitor here. And anyway,
so I'm going to turn this over to Andre, since he was the next one up on my screen.
Thanks again.
Yeah, thank you. So one, two, three things. First of all, why do you take a meeting for the observers and a webinar for the panelists? I would do it exactly the other way around. Having a meeting for the panelists so they can see each other, and putting the ISO in there, and then having a webinar where the observers only see like one composed video. Or shall the observers be able to see themselves as well and communicate with each other?
I'm not sure if I understood. Was there a question in there?
So the question is, do you need a meeting for the observers that they can speak to each other and see each other? Or are the observers only there for like watching a video, so to say, produce content?
So it does need to be a meeting where they, because, and maybe I'm not thinking about this in the same way as you, but these people, they may be in different places, different geographical areas or whatever. So Zoom just is like a platform they're all familiar with, so they all could join this. The idea was that they all join this Zoom meeting and tune into this other Zoom session in progress, with the added benefit of being able to chat with each other, interact with each other. Well, just like we are here, you know, not only chat, but talk real time.
Yeah, copy. So then like a meeting makes sense.
Okay.
Okay, so regarding the workload of your computers, what Macs are you using?
This one is a laptop. The coordinator computer is a laptop. This one is like an iMac on the right. And I guess to be more specific, this would be a MacBook Pro on the left, and this would be like a brand new iMac on the right.
And the MacBook Pro is, or are both M1 machines?
The producer computer is an M1 machine. The coordinator computer is not. I believe that's an Intel.
Okay, because ZoomISO is highly optimized for M1 Macs, so you should run it on the M1. The other thing is,
will it not function? Will it just not function with a?
It's not recommended and it's not supported. It will function, but it can have issues. So it's really highly recommended to run it on M1. The other thing is, if you run ZoomISO on a machine, I wouldn't run OBS parallel to it because of spreading the workload. I'm not sure how your success is with this, but yeah, to be on the safe place, I wouldn't do two graphical intensive machines programs on one machine to spread it.
All right. You said, so you wouldn't run OBS Studio in parallel with what?
With ZoomISO. I would take the ISO on one machine and the OBS on the other machine if it's possible. Yeah. Then for sure you lose the possibility to use Siphon, but you can use NEI. Yeah, the network bandwidth is a thing. You can calculate like 6 to 9 Mbits per second per each 1080p participant you take out of ZoomISO. So regarding on how many you pick out, it sums up.
Okay. So kind of back to Robert's earlier suggestion to maybe run ZoomISO on the coordinator computer.
Yeah. And for regarding Companion, we use Companion very regularly and yeah, very intensive, but you should always have a backup for not using Companion, because it appears that Companion sometimes doesn't work. And if you have a workflow completely reliable on Companion, this can be a problem. And you can essentially do everything that you can do with Companion and ZoomISO in the ISO client itself. It's only more like fiddling around here and there. So it's not getting many functions with one push, but you should be aware where each part is that Companion can control, where you have the setting in the ZoomISO as well to find it.
Okay, so if I understand that correctly, you would, if you weren't running Companion, let's see, so this like a stream, something like a Stream Deck would interact with the interact directly with ZoomISO. Is that what you're?
No, yeah, that would be via Companion. But you should know exactly where to click in ZoomISO, the action that Companion makes, so to say. You have to know where the actions are and not rely only on Companion, because sometimes it doesn't work, and then you have to know where to click to get the function working. Yeah, and two things: a gallery isn't available in Zoom, like was it Justin said before. So if you want to have a gallery view, you have to have another Zoom client giving this gallery view into OBS. Yeah. And screen sharing can be very finicky over ZoomISO. They didn't get this solved yet very good. So it can be that the first screen share works, but the second doesn't, and then you have to flip the switches. Yeah, that's not reliable for the moment.
Okay, so is this maybe where Isadora Media Server comes in? Because that was another app that I saw coming up a lot as I was researching things, and I didn't see a huge. I didn't see, like, when I was drawing all this up, I didn't see like, okay, well, is there really any benefit to having that when you can communicate directly with OBS Studio to, you know, I can set up custom layout.
I think you'll find the only people using Isadora are Zoom themselves, and they're using it, and they're using it at leading edge.
Office Hours is using it.
Yeah, and probably thousands of theaters throughout the world as well. I mean, you know,
but they've come in it from another way, haven't they? They've come in it because they're Isadora users coming into Zoom.
Okay, I see.
Yeah.
So it's
Isadora. Think of it. I think of Isadora as if you need logic in your pipeline, then Isadora is a great injection piece, if you will. So you take OSC can get the status of an unmuted mic. Okay. And we can change a color. I mean, I put up the picture of the Stream Deck, my Stream Deck that's running, and you can see, you know, it color changes based on what's happening and so forth. So I'm blue right now because I'm the active speaker. That'll go back. Go ahead and talk, Dale. You'll see it change.
Hi.
There you go.
Going? Okay. Yep.
Yeah. So we can do that, but I can't automatically. So if I detect you unmute yourself with Companion, I can't say remute, or ZoomOSC. I can't say based on that event, do this. that's logic with followed by execution, if you will. Isadora can say, hey, when somebody unmutes, mute them. When somebody does this in chat or says this in chat, says, I need help, or, whatever the case is, right? I'd like to join a breakout room. You can have Isadora act appropriately and do what you've, told it to do and so forth. And so when you need that, all the data for Isadora, as far as Zoom is concerned, is all being provided by ZoomOSC. So we already have that. It's just what is it that Isadora can do that Companion can't do? That's the real question. Because Isadora, I don't think compares to OBS as much as it does is like, what's it adding to Companion and OBS, workflow already? And it may be based on either a status change in Zoom, which OSC feeds as Isadora, and Isadora makes a decision based on that. And so, you can see, Andre, lower your raised hand, because you're in the top left corner right now. Lower your raised hand. Yeah. Boom, he's gone. He's not gone. He just found himself back at the bottom of the list under the down button. Yeah, because that's where he is. And so you raise it again. Well, he gets put at the end of the line, if you will, but still in the top left corner. That's a behavior of Zoom, because that's what they do in their gallery. And these buttons on this particular page of my Stream Deck and Companion are the top left one, the Andy that is in. That is, hey, show me. I'm too zoomed in. You can't see the right side of the screen. But show me who's in gallery position 1. The next one says, show me who's in gallery position 2. And so these 24 buttons that are yellow and red right now, they're all about gallery position 1 through 24. And so then you couple that with Zoom's behavior that when a hand is raised digitally, it puts it at the top left. The Stream Deck with Companion and OSC just automatically adjusts. It puts the digital hand up as an image. It can change the color. If I go to that page and click on Andy, I've selected him. Now I'm going to tell it to bring him on, which is to spotlight him and so forth. And so, it's just there's a ton that can be done, but Isadora, when you get familiar enough with Companion, OBS, and Zoom, and you find that you have a need that you can't solve, the answer might be Isadora at that point, because it's usually based on data you can get, but how do you respond to it? Like, how does something automatically respond to it and do something? And that may very well be where, like an Isadora may be your solution. So it's a great one for sure.
Okay.
But, yeah.
It doesn't sound like it's going to be critical for my needs then, which actually helps me out a lot, as to maybe not go barking up that tree just yet. Because I have a little bit of experience with Isadora, and most of my conclusions with it were this is just like a little too far over my head for for what I need. So it sounds like that may still be the case.
It would be a little bit like Companion on steroids for your purpose.
Yeah, it sounds like what you guys have mentioned Companion multiple times, and it sounds like the level of entry there might be a little bit lower to where I can kind of get into it and do some of this automated stuff.
Well, like I said, depending on how much time you've got, Andy and I are going to hang out here and keep the room open, but we're going to be programming his Companion for his Stream Deck for an event for tomorrow. And so if you want, I have no problem sharing the screens and showing the work and so forth, but we have a project that this isn't just a fun educational project. This is a project for work tomorrow, but I give you some great exposure of what it takes to do it. And you'll see it's not hard. It's really kind of a kind of macro driven, environment, drag drop, top to bottom processing for the most part. And I mean, it continues to grow. I mean, it gets better and better all the time, and custom variables and triggers now and so forth. So
Cool. Well, that's and free also. So
yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
always good. But yeah, that's a super generous offer. I think I probably am going to have to drop soon. But all this feedback has been super helpful. I think it sounds like I have a pretty decent, if I had one more question, I guess it seems like the main piece that's missing here for me is the ZoomOSC, as Jeff initially said. Do you guys have any? No?
No, ZoomOSC is part of ZoomISO. So if you have ZoomISO, you get the full functionality of ZoomOSC.
No, that's not true. No,
yeah, that's true.
If you have to pay for both licenses.
No, ZoomISO now includes it.
No.
Oh, it does. I missed that.
And
I mean, I run just ZoomISO as a application, but I had to register. I thought I had to register both products. Initially I did. Maybe if that's what's changed, that's good.
No, I was when I was at IBC, seeing Andy and seeing the ZoomISO thing. The first thing I thought was, okay, ZoomISO is now 47 euros. I don't know exactly. ZoomOSC was 32, and I get the full functionality of ZoomOSC with addition of ZoomISO for like $10 more. And so this is a really good deal.
That's cool.
Yeah, that was my interpretation. Was I forget what the two levels were. There were like 2 tiers of ZoomISO, and each one came bundled with some flavor of ZoomOSC. I think
the one is called Lite. It gets you up to 4 outputs, I believe, and the other one is like the full version with unlimited outputs.
Okay.
Yeah,
so I think
Dale,
what I'm trying to determine is like if I was to, it seems like they perform 2 separate functions though. They're 2 different things. There's ZoomISO and there's ZoomOSC, and I'm trying to figure out if I wanted to add ZoomOSC to my drawing here, where would I put that? That's kind of what I'm trying to figure out.
Well, I mean, if your event involves Zoom even as a component of it, it might be the green room, it might be the stage, or it might be where the audience is, but Zoom is present. Then the next question is, are you managing Zoom in the process of video production, which spotlighting within Zoom, maybe because you're pinning or spotlighting and screen grabbing, or if you didn't have ISO, for instance, are you needing to, in a more automated fashion, manage microphones and so forth as well, not raising, but lowering raised hands, things like that. If on my page that I was sharing earlier.
So Dale, to answer this question is really easily for you. You mentioned earlier you have a resource that's managing Zoom and doing pinning and everything else. ZoomOSC replaces that person essentially. So you program all the actions she's doing, and then she just pushes a button on the Stream Deck. So like if you want to unmute and spotlight, it's 2 actions inside of Zoom, but you could program a companion button to tell OSC, for this user, unmute them, spotlight them, request their videos on, all with just a button now. So it's milliseconds to get that action versus a second or 2. That's where OSC goes in. ISO is just grabbing videos. ISO just by itself, even though ZoomOSC is bundled in, if you just use the ISO functionality, it's just capturing video.
Yeah, and Dale, if you for your drawing, what we usually do is we have audio and video signals flowing like left to right or vice versa, depending if that's where they're coming from. And control signals, like you would use a ZoomOSC for, would be like on top or on the bottom of your drawing.
I could get much more
on the bottom.
Okay.
Yeah.
I could get much more
have the right
detailed
idea
with
here.
like what these buttons are. Like, if I wanted to go even deeper on this, I could really zoom in on the Stream Deck and say this button performs this function. Is that what you're talking about?
Same idea. Yeah. I'm just saying from a drawing standpoint, like, yeah, you have it right. It's a control function. So don't put it on the left or right side, put it below where you have it. That's clearly, it delineates it from it being an actual signal, an audio or video signal. So that's a good thing. That's even in more complex drawings, that's what I've seen. And I've done actually on some drawings.
Okay. So it essentially works, if I'm understanding this correctly, it kind of works in tandem with Companion then. Let me think about this. ZoomOSC.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
The best way is to have some Companion Stream Deck buttons and press the buttons to get actions fulfilled by ZoomOSC.
Yeah.
Which is essentially included in ZoomISO, so it's like the same instance of Companion, but the one is like the OSC functionality, the other one is the ISO functionality.
Right.
And I'll just say this too, even in large meetings where there's a really large video switcher, I still see the TDs with a Stream Deck in front of them pushing buttons to either switch cameras or switch what the Zoom audience is seeing or the in-person audience is seeing, or, yeah. So they're still really leveraging Companion to do some of these macros for them.
Okay.
Yeah. The only other thing I'd add is, with office hours, two things. One is, the main thing is there's a Discord group associated with office hours. That thing is amazing. That's like going back to college and being able to ask anybody any question, or if you have a solution for someone, it's a really rich community. It's
I'll have
awesome.
to get on there. I actually did join that as well, but I haven't had time to kind of
okay.
get
Yes, you've seen it. You've seen it. Yeah. And then the ZoomISO room, I have to say, I accidentally wandered into it one day. I didn't know it was a recording, and I started talking to them. And I'm like, why aren't they talking back? Oh, this thing's looping back around.
Well, and they talk on top of each other and so forth. It's not like it's just a single video,
Yeah, and one important thing with the ISO room is, so if you get to manage into after hours and into the ISO room, as it are recordings from OBS, sometimes the audio and video are not in sync. So if you see audio and video not in sync, don't think about your system has a break, but check the gallery view of this thing. And if you see it's not in sync, then it's because of the playback. OBS machines aren't in sync and they have to like reboot it.
Oh God, yeah, that's a good point. The other thing I was going to ask you, Dad, was I know you got to run, but we got to go. But what are you using for audio? Do you have separate audio control over this or not?
So we haven't. I haven't thought about. I mean, I know that will probably eventually become a concern as I'm putting it together, but I hadn't been thinking about audio too much. Did you have something specific in mind? Like,
no, I mean, if you are going to go to ZoomISO, then you get, I believe you get 5 audio channels, if I'm not mistaken, along with your 5 video channels. Someone might correct me on that.
No, you get as much as you want.
Oh, you get as much as you want. Okay, but you only get 5 video sources, correct?
I think
so. From ZoomISO Lite. From ZoomISO Lite, you can get up to 4. From ZoomISO Pro, you can get up to unlimited.
Oh, wow. So like, okay. I didn't realize that they made a change. Okay.
So
I think the finding is that from 8 1080p feeds, it gets like really hard for the machine. But if you want to do an own gallery with like 20 180p feeds, it's no problem. Okay. And each individual feed can have maxed audio, no audio, or like ISO audio.
Oh, that's great.
You choose that in ZoomISO.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, yeah.
The reason I brought that up is because if a lot of your presenters don't, like they're just presenting on a laptop and you're not getting really good audio, and you have that as a separate channel, the flow would be you can parse out their audio. And what we've done is it then joins up the NDI audio, becomes a Dante audio source, and then it's easy to bring into a mixer, and then that person can go, okay, I've got that on a fader. That's Joe in Cincinnati or whatever, and he's got crappy audio. I'll tweak him in real time, and then now you may not have that need, but
we may, it's interesting, yeah, because. I feel like that might be the next phase. Like once I get all this working,
sure.
It would be, I'm trying to keep it simple for myself as I can. But that is definitely would be a useful feature, because I can't tell you how many times somebody comes in with like a really hot mic and you just don't know what, we can't always just come in and interrupt the flow of the conversation.
Yeah.
They're presenting. And
yeah. And I believe OBS has some, I know you can connect up like a MIDI fader pack to it or something like that. You might be able to give yourself, I think you can give yourself some control over an input, if you have that person parsed out in OBS.
Yeah, I guess that was a thought I had, because I know MIDI controllers will interface with OBS, I think. So I could hook up potentially a MIDI controller just directly to OBS and try to break out the audio.
Yeah, at least for level control. I don't know if you could if you have one with extra knobs, I don't know if OBS would allow you to like control its EQ or whatever, but that, that gets
just volume would be great, actually. So
sure.
That seems like a pretty simple solution. Potentially would just be do a MIDI controller talking to OBS only for audio levels.
Got it. Yeah, Mike's had his hand up forever, so I'm gonna shut up now.
So patient. Everybody wants to talk to me. This is like
no problem, Andy. No problem. So basically, what everybody said, and the only thing that I'll add to this is that if you are within one machine, do not use NDI. If you need multiple machines, then use NDI. Very important. And if you can get a dedicated switch, preferably an AV switch that loves NDI, the less headaches you will have on the network.
Okay.
Very important.
So can I add a say just to make sure that things aren't misunderstood? NDI will certainly carry across a local area network, and in fact, it can be routed these days as well with a little bit of help. But Mike's point is bandwidth consumption, right? And how quickly it can deteriorate, and disrupt your existing network. When, for instance, if you put ZoomISO and its output or NDI outputs, and it was OBS that's on the same machine consuming them, Mike's point is it never gets out on the wire. It all stays within the machine. Now, if that's all on a Mac, you can just do it via Siphon from app to app as well. So, and Siphon's going to be a little less latent and so forth. So, I mean, you have choices at that point. But yeah, you just have to be really careful, because with full NDI outputs at 130 meg a piece or so, you can consume, you can deteriorate 100 meg network pretty dang quick. And
also, again, if you're talking 8 feeds, that's easily a gigabit right there. So with a little bit of headroom that you're running on the network, because a quick little, good old NDI is actually a very noisy technology, meaning that it basically doesn't really care what's on the network. It just goes, I'm here, and just blasts on the network. And it basically what's happening is it's waiting for somebody to just pick up the feed, but it is on the network all the time as soon as you start it.
Well,
so it will be on that network.
Isn't there more clarity? Correct me if I'm wrong, though. If you set up ZoomISO with, let's say, 4 outputs at 1080 NDI, there's only publishing information out there that says, hey, I've got these 4 feeds available, but there is no full transmission until there's a consumer present who's actually subscribed to that NDI feed, and now it starts sucking it down the line. It's when the subscriptions begin that the big numbers start hitting your network. Beyond that, it's really, I just hold up my menu that says I have output 1, 2, 3, and 4. Here's a preview of them. If you want it, you can consume it, and that's when the hit on your network begins. That's how I understand it, Mike.
Yeah, well, again, it really depends on the way. Again, I'm not fully versed on ZoomISO, how they implement NDI, but in the basics of NDI, as soon as you activate that NDI channel, it is broadcasting on the network. It's ready to be discovered. Now, if ZoomISO, you have to tick a box that says, now, start broadcasting NDI, then it's going to be on the network, because again, it is using the multicast layer of the network. So basically that's how everybody can attach to it, is it's using the M-bone portion of the network layer on the network. So basically, long story short, without getting into the weeds of networking, I'll basically say that the amount of bandwidth that it is sending is based on what ZoomISO bandwidth has been allocated to it. It'll send that one feed out. And the great thing about NDI is that you could have 10 machines, 20 machines receive that feed. And it's only broadcasting whatever that one bandwidth of ZoomISO is bandwidth out. But the bad thing about NDI is that if you only really need one feed out and you're only bringing it in once, that's, again, it's not utilizing the true NDI technology to its fullest capacity. You're only really virtualizing, shall we call it, a cable between two physical machines then, right? You're not actually using the true technology of NDI. Where NDI is truly the best is when you start to get into two people needing to see that feed, three people, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Because then truly you're actually utilizing the NDI technology to what it was really initially made for, especially full NDI versus NDI HX. And as far as I know, ZoomISO is using NDI HX, Robert, yes?
Correct.
No, it's using full NDI.
ZoomISO is full NDI.
ZoomISO is using full NDI, so it's like 150 mbits per 1080 stream.
Okay, so you're in the 100 megabit per second then, if it's using full NDI.
Yeah,
So if I was to take and replace NDI in this, I mean, because theoretically I could in this instance replace NDI with Siphon and do this exactly the same thing, because NDI isn't needed over here. It's all on this producer computer on the right.
Right. That's exactly what I was saying. So if you can keep it within the machine within one machine,
yeah,
then and by all means, because Siphon is available for Mac, utilize it.
I think
don't use NDI unless you really, really need to.
Right.
So think about,
but what
it has to be the M1 machine with the ZoomISO.
So this is an M1 machine here, yes.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
And that, actually, I think you're getting to what I was just about to say, is because your recommendation was that running ZoomISO and OBS Studio on the same machine could create some real problems, correct, Andre?
It could. So it really is about the horsepower of the machine, and creating 8 ZoomISO feeds out of eight ISO feeds out of ZoomISO is a task for the machine. So I don't know how spec your machine is, but you have to try it. Maybe it's possible without an issue. And also, I believe OBS isn't maybe the stablest program on Mac. I'm not sure about this. So it could be an issue to run like 8 ISO feeds and OBS on one machine. That's what I'm saying. But also bringing 8 NDI feeds over a gigabit network is also an issue, because then you congest your network with only NDI and have and it will drop frames and everything.
It sounds like I probably just need to try exactly this, maybe replace NDI with Siphon and then just try that and see how it goes. Because I'm not sure the exact specs of this machine. It is the best machine in the room, in the studio that we run this from, but yeah.
And you could also try take 720p feeds, not 1080. I don't know how good your sources are, if they have good cameras, and if it's worth 1080, or if you only take 720 and spare a lot of horsepower and network bandwidth.
I think 720, it actually may be more than fine for what our immediate needs are anyway. 1080 would be nice. Maybe I'll try that first, and if it doesn't work out, go 720. What was the other thing, Andre, you were saying about gallery view being problematic with ZoomISO?
You don't get it out of ZoomISO, so you have to take a usual Zoom gallery feed and take a capture card and bring it into your OBS. You could use the gallery of ZoomISO because it shows a gallery, but you need to take it into OBS or take a screen capture of it over NDI. But there is no possibility to bring out the gallery out of ZoomISO, because as Andy described it, there is no real gallery. The gallery is a composite of 180 feeds. And so technically there is no availability of a gallery in Zoom. It's a composite.
So I have this wrong, like so I have gallery view as like existing as a source within this Zoom session, and then passing it
that's
over.
not right.
It can't really do that.
No,
it sounds like
if you had a
we'll
separate laptop and you were screen scraping that one via like, NDI, screen capture or something like that. But yeah, you'd have to get it from the client, puts it together. I think it was initially proposed in the kind of the first revs, but I think it was learned that the galleries put together at the client end of all these.
I suppose a workaround though for me could be, because I have all the other individual sources, let's say this gallery feed just goes away completely. I mean, I could create a gallery scene in OBS though to replace gallery view with it.
You can. I mean, really, I always think about it as like you've got OBS in the chain or vMix or Ecamm, and you're bringing in all these feeds and you're producing them. Why in the hell do you want to show this gallery freaking view?
It's not
that
nice.
All that effort was really trying to extract itself from. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, just produce that, and that's what Office Hours has done is, they're still on, the mechanics of Zoom behind the scenes, but even though it looks like a whole 16 total when it's full, at 16 videos, it's super source. It's not truly the gallery of Zoom. So
and it's not even a super source. It's not even a super source. It's like it's the multi-view of the constellation. So you can configure the multi-view of the constellation as like, I think 4 up, 9 up, and 12 up, and 16 up. And so essentially it's only a multi-view out of the constellation with a mortise over it.
Well, generally I've liked the simplicity of explaining this to my stakeholders and whatever. Like the gallery view is a source and you just pull it on over like that. So I might just keep that for explaining to people. But yeah, I totally get what you're saying. It's not, it's like a compilation of sources. Why not just assemble it in a better looking fashion within your production suite here?
You can also theme it too, Dale, if you wanted to.
Yeah, give it a fancy background or something.
And for the number of people you have, it makes sense for you to be able to do your own.
Yeah.
If you had truly 49 participants and you wanted to just show that for like social proof or something, you definitely wouldn't want to try to grab 49 individuals and do it yourself. But for 4, 8, totally makes sense to do because you're already bringing them into OBS anyway.
Yeah. Okay.
Robert, what do you got?
Dale, I'm coming back to you on audio this time. And because we run events with interpreters, we got to have really good audio sources from the speakers. And when speakers or panelists are on Mac machines, we don't usually have an issue. Issues start coming up when they're on Windows machines. Yeah? And if during your pre-event tests, you find a speaker with a really bad mic and the sound is really bad, we send out, let me share this with you. We found this cheap microphone. It's really sweet. And it costs $20 on Amazon. Cool. And it's a USB gooseneck. And the quality is amazing. I don't know how long it'll last, but the quality for your event is amazing. Yeah. I just put this up on the screen here because it's just so, I don't know if that's readable. No, it's upside down.
Not super clear, but if you want to put something in the chat or something.
Yeah,
we do use something similar. Our coordinator uses a similar mic to that, so her audio is usually good. But yours looks almost identical. But there's
It's a Klim mic. It's made in China, but the quality is it is a Klim chat mic, Justin. The quality is amazing, and it's a USB, so setting it up is like simple, super simple, and it just proves, and it's light, of course, so the transport and delivery via Amazon is really easy. But this has been a lifesaver for us a couple of times. I highly recommend it.
Cool. I'll have to pick one up.
Very cool.
So you actually, Robert, you send those out to your speakers or whoever and say, plug this into your computer, so you're not using your lousy laptop mic.
Exactly. When we do the pre-event tests, and what we've got is scoped into our contracts that if necessary, we will supply them at their cost and charge them for them. And because it's $20 plus transport, unless you've got some Amazon Prime, then it's just $20. It's no big deal. It doesn't break. It's not a contract breaker.
Yeah.
Of course, the last straw is if you find a guy who's really, really bad, and it's because of his internet access, then just have a backup that's pre-recorded.
Well, that's a cool idea. I like the idea in general. I think that a lot of times we don't know exactly who's going to be on. That's one of the challenges we face, is like, oh, well, who's it going to be this time? It could be anybody, and usually it's in the United States. So we may not do that, but I'll definitely like the idea.
Robert, how do you deal with panelists that live far away, like, I don't know, Africa, South America, whatever?
Yeah, where they have bad internet access, we take a pre-recording. We ask them to send us a pre-recorded version of their talk, and we tell them it's a backup in case anything goes wrong. And if something does go wrong, we just play it.
Yeah, copy. Makes sense. Would have made sense for us as well, right?
I don't want to comment. I don't have the right to comment, Andre, but
yeah, but I learned a lot.
Well, you all have been super helpful. Thank you so much for your time, and this is very cool. I did not expect to talk this much on my first session with you all, so just really awesome help. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
and
good connection.
Good connection. Go ahead, utilize the Office Hours Discord. It's really, really helpful. And there is a Zoom category ZoomISO, ZoomOSC, vMix, OBS. So you find help for everything you need.
Okay.
Thanks for pimping my Discord, Andre. I'm just kidding. They're not wrong. Yeah, I mean,
you're on there as well.
Office Hours Discord has been out and matured itself to be a very valuable tool for sure. So, yeah,
I will get into that. Thank you so much for spending time with a newbie like me today.
Yeah, you bet. Every Friday at 2:00 Central, 3:00 Eastern. Hey, feel free. Jump in. I think you're registered now, right? So you're in the email database. I usually send out. Today was late, but normally I try to do it on Thursday or early or Friday mornings, just letting you know kind of topically, what's on the horizon and things like that. But it's just a great place to come in and, test and ask questions and so forth. So yeah, thanks for coming in, Dale, for sure. Good to know you.
You too. Thank you.
You got your hand up, Andre, or did I forget to take it down?
Yeah, so I got a question to Robert maybe, and all the others who dealt with interpretation over Zoom. So Robert, my experience this week, we had an event together where Robert supported me. My experience was that when I had something on the stage which was interpreted, let's say, to German, and then I have someone on the stage speaking German original language. So we have in the interpreted channel, we have the interpreter, and then we have a little space, and then we have the person with the original German language on stage. And my feeling was that Zoom does a kind of ducking, which needs 5 to 10 seconds. until the person on the stage is hearable in the original language, and before there's the interpreter's channel ducking this. Is this normal?
That's exactly the way it works, Andre. And I know what you're referring to because we've talked about it. That is normal. You'll hear the volume of the speaker high, and then as the interpreter comes in, that volume will go down and the interpreter will be high. What is really super important and needs to be tested directly before the event is that if you're using original sound switched on for your feed into Zoom from the mixer, need to check if you've got all of the echo cancellation or anything like that on. Because what happens if there's...
In the client, you mean?
Yeah, in the laptop that is in sort of imitating the interpreter on Zoom, where you're feeding in. Those settings affect whether the original speaker will go up or down. And that's the issue we have that I'll correct for you on the recordings.
Oh, that's very interesting. So you have to show me how do I set it exactly or correctly? This would be interesting. And another thing, so is it normal that it will last 5 to 10 seconds until the noise reduction is gone away? So in other words, the first 5 to 10 seconds of the person speaking in German on the stage aren't audible in any way, right?
No,
because
well, that's the wrong setting. That's where the setting is wrong, because that shouldn't be happening. Yeah, and the reason that happens is that more than often you have noise coming from the interpreter's channel, and if you have noise coming through the interpreter's channel, then Zoom will think the interpreter's speaking, so it'll drop the volume down of the original speaker on the stage.
Copy. Okay, thank you.
All right. I'm gonna start working with Mr. Andy and see if we can get a Stream Deck companion page knocked out, and then we'll finish up the rest later this evening. But it has been a good day, other than not having success with the polling to breakouts, and we'll check that out and see what we can do to get some resolve on that. We know it can work for sure, but well, I'll restart the meeting tonight, maybe for kind of our part 2, Andy, and if we have a moment, we can test that real quick. But anyways, let me, if you don't mind, let me put a end on this YouTube stream. And you don't have to leave the meeting, but I'm going to end it for the YouTube stream, and I'll be right back. Thanks.